Planning and Zoning Commission. I call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Item number 2 on the agenda is the seat alternate to act. If required, we have Commissioner Carbone joining us this evening. Item number 3 is hearing the residents. It's time to set aside for any person who wishes to address the Planning and Zoning Commission. Each person should fill out the speaker's register prior to the meeting. Presentation should be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Discussion by the commission of any item not on the agenda shall be limited to statements of specific factual information given in response to an inquiry, a recitation of existing policy in response to an inquiry, and/or a proposal to place the item on a future agenda. The presiding officer during the hearing of residents portion of the agenda will call on those persons who have signed up to speak in the order they have registered. Trouble is, I have 2 sign-up sheets, so which one comes first? Then you, okay. So let me explain a little bit about what we're going to do tonight. Where we're at now is for any interested person that has signed the roster to address this commission. If you, and I think a lot of you, if not all of you, want to talk about the Hillbrook project, okay? That project is actually, let's see, it's item number, what are we at here? Item 5B, which is a public hearing. And as a public hearing, there will come a point of time in that presentation when anyone wishing to address the commission on that subject, whether you signed up or not, will be allowed to speak. So those of you that have signed the roster, you're entitled. You can have 3 minutes during this segment and another 3 minutes during the public hearing, or you can choose to wait and just speak during the public hearing. Okay. What we're going to have as part of the public hearing will be a presentation by both staff, and I assume the applicant will want to make one, so there will be more information available to you after that. Okay, but again, it's your choice. You can speak both times if you want to. So I'm just going to start with the roster that's on top here. It looks like Stephen Berry. Did I get that right? You want to come up, sir? And as you come up to this microphone, please, we need your name and address for the record. Sure.
Steve Berry, 12139 Reveille Way, Schertz, Texas. And I wanted to talk about the upgrade to FM 1518, because it seems like there's a lot of work going on, but it doesn't seem like we're getting anything really accomplished. And there's already traffic problems, there's pothole problems, and it goes hand in hand with what we're going to talk about later with the project, that my opinion is that this should be postponed, this project, for years until 1518 is complete, because they're already putting 2,000 homes in behind where we live. And the traffic is only going to get worse. And the schools are right there. And if, kids run out in the street or something, I'm more concerned about the safety aspect of this. Everybody's got to have a place to live, but we're not ready for it. Is the city ready for the infrastructure? Is the city ready to take on additional services for these people? No. And how many people are we talking about in the project? I'll wait to hear about.
All right. Thank you, sir. And I'll ask the audience, please, if you have comments, you'll be given a chance to speak. All right. In the meantime, if you wouldn't mind just being courteous to the commission and the rest of the audience, I would appreciate it. Let me just say this right up front, okay? Because I've been in this position before, okay? You have no reason to be upset with me or the other commissioners. We've done nothing, okay? We have no knowledge. The only knowledge we have, this is a zoning case. It's not about what they're going to build. It's a zoning case. But let me say up front, we've done nothing. And I've had people come in before, and they're just antagonistic, and they're angry with me, and I haven't done So please, everyone will get a chance to talk, and you know, I just ask for a little courtesy, you know, I would appreciate it. Josh Berry.
Josh Berry, 12370 Erskine Valley. The reason I moved from Commerce to Schertz was because of all the Section 8 housing that went up out there, and it just became a slum. Crime and violence, drugs galore. The last thing I want is for my children, ages 6 and 4, to be involved with anything like that. The schools are already at breaking point. We hear about it all the time. The last thing I need is to worry about them. Along with that, my first space when I served was up in McCourt. We weren't even allowed off base as a grown adult because of all the projects in Section 8 and things like that, because there's nothing but drugs and crime. That's not fair to do to us being this close to a base as well. The last thing we should do is worry about the careers as well as the capability of the military in whole by having all of these projects so close to it, especially when you're talking the flight pattern is over in this area. The last thing we need is for mistakes to be made. We love this area, but with this extra zoning, how's our park going to be able to hold it? We barely have room for our kids right now. It's way too small. And at the same time, is there going to be another water tower? Because that's going to take a lot of the infrastructure that we're going to need. Is that going to be built? And if so, where? The high school coming in, traffic. What about lights, speed bumps? Lord knows we need that already in our subdivision because people seem to not know what 20 miles an hour is. It's starting to get very hectic out there, and I'm starting to get a little frustrated as a parent with young kids. And I know I'm not the only one. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome, sir. Ed Paquette? Did I say that too bad?
No, you're fine. Ed Paquette, 9858 Morehouse Drive. One thing that's concerned, you already have a complex going up on 1518 across from Crossfire. That's already been approved. And from what I understand, I don't know if it's accurate or not, there's another one proposed across from the fire station on Lower Seguin Road. That's at Crossfire. Now we're talking about adding a third one on Roy Corbett. That's 3 complexes within a mile of each other. Everybody's got to have affordable housing. I don't have a problem with that. But why are they all being put in a box? There's other places to put that. That's number one. Another thing that I would like as a homeowner on this is when I looked at it, tried to look this up, all I got was a sheet with a rectangle on it. There was nothing on the website so that I could have a good question on as far as, you know, who's the builder? What kind of reputation do they have? Things like that. Those are things that concern me. I didn't hear good things about the builder on the 15-acre crossline, but I would like to be able to do a little research so that I can give you a little more informed decision or, you know, opinion on it. Another thing real quick on that, we have the Rhine Valley Park, which is a city park very close to where we're at. Is this facility going to have a park, or are we going to have 300 residents coming over, overloading that city park? So there's a lot of little questions that I have that I can't answer because I got a sheet with a square on it. That's all I'm saying. That's all. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. I think there was a, but you had to know where to look for it. I think down in the news section there was a link to the public hearing, which had a little, but it only talked about the zoning. We, as commissioners, have no idea of what the actual project is. So we're going to hear at the same time you do. And just in the future, see all of these folks in the front row over here, that's your planning department. Call them. They'll be more than willing to answer your questions. And I'm not aware of one going in Crossline across from the bud.
I have heard. I don't know if that's...
Sometimes we're the last ones to know. This Marissa, is that Moran or Nolan?
Nolan.
Nolan, okay.
I'm Marissa Nolan, 9823 Molehouse Drive, Schertz, Texas. Thank you for your time. My first question would be, why not send a letter to all of the residents? The letter was sent about this, that we had to find out only to select residents. Some of that was just vacant land or the school board. So that's my first question that I'd like to know. The second thing would be, how would it affect our property values going into where we're at right now? Concerned about the roads. The roads are not wide enough to support all of that that's going to be coming. And after doing a lot of digging, it looks like this is going to have a daycare facility with the actual apartments as well. So again, that's another concern as well, in between the two schools, etc. And then I also found a little bit of information that there might be a family member that is connected, that's on the council, that is connected to this project. I'm just curious about that. Am I good?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I try not to, really, we try to save all the answers for the end, not to cut into your time, but the one project you're talking about with the council member, that's a different project. That's the one that's across, from Crossfire, okay? Amanda Jones.
Good evening. My name's Amanda Jones, 9859 Morehouse Drive, Schertz, Texas. My concern really is similar to those that have already spoken in regards to the schools being overloaded. Currently, I have a 15 and a 17-year-old that go to Clemens, so I'm concerned more about traffic because I do have a driver. I don't know if y'all have been out on 1518 in the morning or in the afternoon when school lets out or school is trying to be in session. That's hell on 1518, or even trying to turn on 1518. So I do have a driver, and that's, I'll be honest, a pain in the ass. School buses, kids driving, Randolph getting out, Randolph going in. And right now we're talking about one lane there, one lane out. And now we're adding all those houses. We're adding multiple apartment complexes. That's just a nightmare. I'm so honest that I'm happy that I work from home. But not everyone has that opportunity. In addition, we have no resources out there. We are lucky we have a Dollar General. That's it. We don't have, not that I'm asking for an HEB out there or anything like that, because I like it quiet, but y'all are adding multiple houses after multiple houses and now complexes, and we have no resources. The closest thing for an HEB or any grocery is the Cibolo HEB and the one off 3009. So, like, what is it that y'all want us to do with that? On top of that, we in Rhine Valley have had multiple just recent emergency issues. We had a car chase the other night at 5 a.m. through our neighborhood. We have what we call the High Heel Bandit for package thefts. So do we have the resources for 911? Because it seems like that's becoming an issue in our neighborhood. So those are major concerns with me when it comes to traffic, school, 911 emergency, and just resources in general. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jennifer Prey, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Prey, 12698 Savin Way, Schertz, Texas. And I have the same concerns that everyone else has had. My children have gone to these schools, and they were cram-packed when they went. If we add all these houses in the apartment complex right behind the school, it's only going to make that worse. Has the city done a time study to see how long it takes to get off of Corporate Junior High Road? Because if you're adding more people, it takes a good 20 minutes to get off of Road Corporate onto 1518 on a good day during school time. Buses are already running late because they don't have enough buses or bus drivers to support the already existing residents. So I'm concerned about that. How are these kiddos going to get to school on time and safely? My other concern, for the people that are facing the apartment complex, how high is this apartment complex going to go? Will people that are in their apartments be able to see into the yards of the Rhine Valley neighborhood? That's a safety concern for the children that live there. And it's not to say that because it's low income that it doesn't need to be there. It's not that everybody needs a safe place to be. And Schertz is a great community. I grew up here. I love it here. I just worry about the infrastructure and the safety of everybody around with adding. If you look at 1518 and notice it getting that light, someone's going to get T-boned because there's people going around. When you're waiting to turn left, people go around, and if you're trying to turn right, you're going to get smacked. I've come so close so many times. And if you add more drivers, it's only going to get exponentially worse. So, and again, with the resources, we have a Dollar General, God bless the Dollar General, because how many times we went out there, especially during snow apocalypse, I wish it was there, because we didn't have anything. And if we have another catastrophe like that, what's going to happen to all these residents that are out there? So, thank you.
You're welcome. This is Charles Killen, is that correct?
My name is Charles Killen. I live at 1212 Eli Whitney. I'm here today about the rezoning of a residential neighborhood into a commercial property. I've lived here since 2003. We purchased our property with the intent of it remaining residential. A few years back, we went through the same process, and it was kept as residential. Now that I see it has been changed to 3 different plots, one which now has a commercial property on it, which we were not aware of when it was built. When the property was built, we had fronting rotors coming down into the property in front of our house, illegally taking water out of your water hydrants without a meter on it. I'm asking what property, what's going to be built on the property, and why is it being rezoned as commercial? It's a simple question.
Okay, well, as I say, we typically, some of the questions will be answered during the public hearing. We'll have a staff presentation and usually the applicant.
And I'd like an answer as to why a commercial property was built without our knowledge.
Well, I can tell you, sir, that property, that Fresenius Care, that kidney dialysis center went through the same process that we're going through tonight.
We never received anything.
I don't know what to tell you about that.
Well, the traffic on 309 where that property's at is going to be a safety hazard. Less than 0.2 of a mile, there was a fatality accident on that same side of the street. So that's what I'd like to let you know.
So I'm going to ask staff that during that first public hearing that maybe you, if you don't already intend to, if you could include a short explanation of the 200-foot, who gets notified and why other people don't get notified, and why we try to solve that with the signs. So if you guys wouldn't mind working that into that, that might answer some questions. Gail, did you want to speak as well?
No, I'll speak later.
Okay. J.C. Herrera.
I'll speak later, sir.
All right. Page 2. Let's see what we got here. Looks like Barbara Holden.
I'll speak later.
Okay. Sylvia Solis Brown.
I'll take both my turn.
All right, sure, come on up.
I have a lot to say. Sylvie Salas Brown, 9778 House. I am going to ask, this one will be concerning, well, it'll be for both the hearing, but my primary question is when they're considering the rezone, what is the ordinance that you're using, where can we look at it to see how they get that rezoning to request it? What are those steps, what is the criteria? To see what ratios you're using for the types of developments in certain areas. Because I know on 78, there's a lot of land for Schertz that could be used for multifamily homes. But also, a lot of that is affected by the infrastructure. Even on 78, there's a whole lot of traffic coming in and going out between 3 and 5. And so that and 1518 intersection with everything that everyone else has said, potholes, there's 2 lanes, we definitely need a middle lane, so rezoning it would just really wreak havoc, just like everyone else has said. So my question is, what is our criteria? How do we know what that ordinance is to those types of ratios for developments from multifamily to single-family homes? And then what is the plan for the infrastructure on 1518 plus Lower Seguin that you can at least give us some hopes on that, yes, we're going to fix it? Because I know there was, with TxDOT, there had been some talks, I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, that they were going to widen the road. I have seen those poles being put up, so I'm hopeful that that's the beginning of it, but I'm not 100% sure. So really, I think my concern is infrastructure and what is that ordinance? Where do they say, how do we rezone it? How many houses, single family versus multifamily? What does that look like? Okay, thank you.
The FM 1518 widening project is not really a planning and zoning project. So I don't know what the status is. I know moving those utility poles is part of it, and I don't know if, we'll see if maybe during one of the presentations, if somebody has some knowledge, maybe they can share that with you. Stephen Berry.
I'll wait.
Okay. Amanda Jones.
Oh, you can go through that list.
Pardon?
You already went through that list. You start with the list that starts with my name, Barbara.
Yeah, that's the list I'm reading. I'm sorry, she's on both lists. Okay. My apologies, I'm just reading the names. All right, and Jennifer Prey is on both legs, so, okay. All right, so, again, we will try, I think some of your questions will most likely be answered during, we actually have two public hearings, and I'm sorry I'm focused on the one for Hillbrook, but we also have the public hearing on the 309 property. Again, well, we're there, so I'll explain it to you. So, okay, that's hearing of residents. Item 4 is our consent agenda. We have a single item on that agenda this evening, and that's the minutes from the March 22nd, 2023 regular meeting. Commissioners, do we need to pull that for discussion? If not, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion to approve. Commissioner Brown, do I have a second? Second. Who was that? Me. You all sound alike. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. All right, so I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Brown, a second from Commissioner Braun. There is no discussion on the consent agenda. I'll call for the vote. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Five ayes, none opposed, that motion passes. Okay, item number 5, we have two items, and both are public hearings. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing related to zone change requests and reclass within this agenda. The public hearing will be open to receive a report from staff, the applicant, the adjoining property owners affected by the applicant's request, and any other interested persons. Upon completion, the public hearing will be closed. The commission will discuss and consider the application and may request additional information from staff or the applicant if required. After deliberation, the commission is asked to consider and act upon the following requests and make a recommendation to the city council if necessary. And that's another thing, let me make clear. We are not on zoning requests. We are not the approving agency. We will simply, we'll have the public hearing, we'll discuss it, and we'll make a recommendation. The final decision is made by city council. So you have another opportunity to come and express your during city council. All right. So again, what we're going to do is we'll start the public hearing with a staff presentation. Then we'll give the applicant an opportunity if they want to make a presentation. But again, I know it's hard because it's difficult for us, but it's not about the particular project. It's about whether or not the requested zoning is appropriate for the area. So item A is PLZC 2022-0213, hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 1 acre of land from single-family residential district R1 to neighborhood services district NS, located approximately 600 feet south of the intersection of FM 309 and Live Oak Road, also known as Guadalupe County Property Identification Number 67544, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas.
Good evening, Commissioners. PLZC 2022-0213, FM 309 zone change, Samuel Haas, Senior Planner. So again, our variance here, the subject property is going to be outlined in green. Just to the east is FM 309, Live Oak Road is to the north, and Greenfield Village is the subdivision to the west.
Yeah, can I interrupt you for just a moment, Sam? Because I know probably most of you can't see this screen, and I apologize. This is a temporary, oh, is there one back here? Did they issue binoculars? I just want to apologize. This is a temporary setup while they redo we normally meet over in the council chambers, and there's a big screen, and this is just, well, we were supposed to be out of here last month, but so anyway, once again, I'm sorry. And you're more than willing if some of you want to come and stand up in the front corners or something. But anyway, I'm sorry, Sam. Go ahead.
Okay, so state law requires that we notify property owners within 200 feet of a zone change request. So in this red line you see here, that is the 200-foot buffer. So that is why some people received notifications and others did not. Now, in order to get more awareness of this project, we do have the applicant post the zone change request in the form of a sign that's very visible, and I believe on this property they put it right in front of 3009. So anybody driving by this property, it will see something there. So on March 30th, 25 public hearing notices were sent to the adjacent property owners, and a sign was placed on the property. As of 5 p.m. today, we have 3 opposition public hearing responses. This is a zoning exhibit here. The proposed rezone for 1 acre is currently zoned single-family residential district R1. The proposed zoning is neighborhood services. Neighborhood services, just to have a brief summary, allows for very light commercial uses. Per the applicant's letter of intent, the proposed development would be a medical office with a pharmaceutical drive-through. So the current land use designation in our comprehensive plan is single-family residential. That is all that yellow that you see there. The single-family residential designation is mostly for residential purposes, but it does allow for limited commercial development. The proposed zone change to neighborhood services would conform to that land use designation as the light-intensity commercial activities permitted within the district aligns with the comprehensive plan. The FM 309 corridor has a variety of land uses and zoning designation. Directly adjacent, just to the north, was the aforementioned Fresenius Medical Care. And so this development would essentially supplement that existing medical office in the area. So because of these reasons, and the proposed rezone of the neighborhood services district does conform to the comprehensive land plan, the proposed development would be light intensity commercial use that would align with the neighboring properties and support the nearby residential uses. Therefore, staff does recommend approval of PLZC 2022-0213 FM 309 zone change request from single-family residential district R1 to neighborhood services district NS as presented.
All right, thank you, sir. Is the applicant here? Did they have a presentation? You look familiar.
Good evening.
I think he's going to hear it, yeah.
I think that's the last one.
Maybe down. We'll see, he's got it.
Sorry. While
while he adjusts that, good evening, Commissioners. Ashley Fairman, Kelly Griffin and Fairman. I'm here tonight on behalf of Hillside Primary Care. They are primary care physicians. They actually have a current office in Schertz, but they are growing and expanding the need for primary care physicians. There's shown to be a great need in this community, and that continues to grow. And with this property, they saw an opportunity to have their own building, and part of the services that they provide include an on-site pharmacy for their patients to kind of get everything into one building and provide the best service possible. There we go. So here on the site, it's a little less than an acre. It is next to the dialysis facility clinic, so they thought it was a good place for an additional medical office. I think there has been a little bit of confusion as to whether it would be that entire block of property that's left vacant on 3009, but it's just the 1 acre piece that you see there. And they thought 3009 was a good location just because it is a neighborhood services type commercial street. They're not going through a neighborhood to access this property and do have access off of a larger road. Sorry, this is no. Here's a zoning request, again, the neighborhood services. The dialysis office does have an office designation. We went with the neighborhood services, the lowest intensity commercial, so that it would allow for that on-site pharmacy. And again, Hillside Primary Care, they have normal hours of operation, 8 to 5. I know you're, again, Commissioner Outlaw, you said you're considering a zoning and not necessarily a particular business, but I do want to provide that information for anybody here. I'm happy to answer any questions about Hillside Primary Care. Again, they are currently in the community, but are growing and look to construct their own building and would like to do so on 309. So happy to answer questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it is 6:31, and I will open the hearing for public comment. Once again, there was no sign-up required for this. If you'd like to address the commission on this particular topic, feel free to step up to the podium. And once again, I'll ask for your name and address for the record.
My name is Gail Killen, 1212 Eli Whitney. This property would be right, as I'm coming out of our cul-de-sac, right in front of our cul-de-sac. We were not notified of the dialysis center. The sign that is posted now is very small. You can barely see it, barely. The letter that we got was dated the 30th. We just got that letter on Thursday. My question is, a few years back, prior to the dialysis center, in my opinion, being snuck in, because we didn't get notification, and we know a lot of people that didn't. There was talk about a veterans park that was going in that property. We have lived here for years. Does anybody know what happened with that project?
Okay, I'm not going to take your time, so I'll make a note.
Okay.
Okay.
So that was one of my questions. I think that if that section across from us continues to grow, it's going to depreciate the value of our property. We have lived there a very long time. We are currently waiting for the city for 2 years to fix our sidewalks. I was told by the gentleman that I went and spoke with last year that it should have been done. It was an error on their part. It should have been done in October. And it still hasn't been done. So it concerns me that we are okay with bringing people, other businesses in and all of that, but we're not even taking care of the properties that are already there. And again, if anybody wants to pay us for the property for the value of our property currently, we would think about that. But this is going to depreciate our property. I do not want to drive out of our cul-de-sac and see all of this. We were not notified, and we are within the range of that kidney dialysis. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? No one? One more time? Okay, it is 6:35, and I will close the public hearing, or the public input portion of the hearing. Let me start just real quick here. I have no knowledge, I don't know about the Veterans Park thing. Does anybody? No. Okay. That may be something we'll have to ask somebody else in City Hall. Okay. As far as the notification goes, I don't know. I can ask staff to pull, they can go back and look in the records, and we can pull this same graphic for the Fresenius property and see, because if you were inside, and they're pretty diligent about it, if you're inside that red line, you should have gotten a letter. Okay. So we've got your name. Do we have a
Address is on there. Should be written on the...
Okay, because what I'm going to suggest is I'll ask staff to look into that and contact you. Okay, now, again, there's not a whole lot we can do about it now, but we certainly need to, if we did miss that, we need to make sure we don't do it again. So I'll ask them to look into it, okay? Okay. All right, how about, commissioners, you guys have anything? Anyone else want to jump in there?
Yeah, question for staff. We addressed this property some years ago, correct? You were here.
Were you here?
Did we try
I
it?
did Fresenius, but I don't...
No, I think it was, I can't, Macco, he was a well-known flipper, a house flipper, and I think he was looking at it. Yeah, he was looking at this property.
There's 4 parcels here, right?
There was one at the time when it originally was done.
I'm wondering if we did address the zoning at that time.
So as I understand it, and I could get it wrong, you guys may have been here longer than I, but when I got here 11 years ago, what I understood is that a few years prior to that, they had come in with a zoning request for maybe that whole section, and that was not approved, as I understood it. The residents came out, a lot of opposition to it, didn't make it through. That's what I understand the history is. And then it was maybe 5-6 years or so ago, they came back and they requested the rezone of just that one parcel where Fresenius is.
Just the one?
Just the one.
Okay.
And that rezoning was approved. So yeah, this next property to the south and those 2 other tracts below have not been rezoned from residential. And so yeah, you're pretty accurate. You'll probably see somebody come back in if this one gets approved for those pieces as well in the future. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Can I zone my property commercial?
Please, the public, we're not open to comments from the public anymore. Okay, if you'd like to have a one-on-one, Mr. James has indicated he'll stay after the meeting, and you're more than welcome to talk to him. Okay?
Does this property abut the dialysis property?
Yes, that's correct.
Will there be intercirculation between the 2 pieces of property?
Yes, that is a requirement of the city to have cross-lot access.
So they will be granted only one access to 3009?
So their access is going to be done through Textile because it's a Textile road, but I would imagine yes.
And that comes when, plating?
Yes.
But if we have the cross access, there shouldn't be, because of the length of the property, but one access on the 3009.
So yeah, I will say this just as a reminder, and in part, this is for the folks in the audience, so you guys understand. This is a zoning event, and so what we're considering is the appropriateness of the land use being requested, the neighborhood services. Again, I hate to get too far down the road and how many points of access will they get? Will there be cross-access, what will the drainage look like, what color will the building be painted? Because all of those are done at separate approvals down the road, and some of those approvals, as was noted, fall to TxDOT. Again, it's FM 3009, Farm to Market 3009, which is a state road, and they have approval in that. So again, I can appreciate trying to want to kind of inform folks that the flip side of that, though, is things can change down the road, and so don't want to make a statement that implies something might happen when, again, it's not part of this approval process, and so we hate to say too much too far down the road, if that makes sense, Commissioner Evans.
I understand.
Yes, sir.
Still really affect what's
So what Mr. James was alluding to there, this once again is a zoning request. Any recommendation from this commission will be about the zoning, not about the project. When it goes to city council, you'll see the same thing. You'll get the same kind of a presentation, and they'll see the project. But again, their decision is about the zoning, not the project. Neighborhood services, within our Unified Development Code, and that's where you'll find, I think, the whole process of how to rezone a piece of property. And that's available if you want to see it. It's on the city website. It's on business or something, and down in there you'll see a link to the Unified Development Code. So, assuming that, but neighborhood services is a step down from general business. And within the Unified Development Code is what we call a use, or omitted use table. And you can go down to each particular type of zoning and what's allowed in there. And so neighborhood services is more restrictive than general business, which is more restrictive than, what would be the next one? M, probably, industrial, okay? And neighborhood services, if you look along 3009, give you a good example. I'm talking off the top of my head, but I think it's well known. See, Walgreens is in a planned development district. Neighborhood services is typically, something like a doctor's office, a pharmacy, a Dollar General. You can't have a gas station. That's not one of the permitted uses. You can't have a bar. So there's a lot of things that you can't have. And so neighborhood services is I think one of the more appropriate in this kind of area because it limits what people can build. But again, what will happen is if we just assume this rezoning gets approved by city council, then the applicant still has to come in. They have to plat the property, and that's where we talk about access and where the utilities are going to go, where the drainage is. They have to work with Public Works and the city engineer on their drainage and utilities. If you assume that gets approved, well, then they still have to come in and get building permits. And it's somewhere in there, I doubt they'll have to do a traffic analysis because of the size of the property, but at some point around is the planning process, they have to send their project to TxDOT, and TxDOT will tell them how many driveway cuts they can have on 3009, if any. Okay. And that's something that's regulated by TxDOT, not by the city. So this is just step one of a whole process. And the reason we want to focus on the zoning is because if it is rezoned to neighborhood services, right now, the proposed project is a medical office, okay? But if that follows through, they can build anything that's on that permitted use table. So that's why we want to take the broader scope of look at the zoning because we know of those other things that could end up there. Okay. You mentioned property values, and that's a pretty squishy thing. I would have thought having that big old 12-foot concrete wall along 3009 would be a turnoff to people, okay? But, we hear that a lot, and we'll hear it again in the next one, okay? People will talk about property values, and, that's something, I don't know. They may go down, they may go up, we just don't know. So, Commissioners, anybody have anything else? What is the zoning of Fresenius? Is that GB and not neighborhood services?
That one is office professional.
Oh. Is that a zone? I thought that was that sounds like a...
Yeah, the OP, it's a...
use plan, not a zone.
Office professional district, yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll have to go back and look at the book. All right, Commissioners, this is a recommendation to City Council to whether to approve or deny this application for rezoning.
On agenda item PLZC 2022-0213, I move that we make a recommendation to approve the zone change.
I have a motion to recommend approval from Commissioner Braun. Do I have a second?
I second.
And I have a second. That was from Commissioner Carbone, right? Commissioners, any further questions or discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. That's 5 ayes, none opposed, so that motion to recommend approval to City Council passes. Okay, item 5B, PLZC 2022-0161, hold a public hearing to consider and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 15 acres of land from pre-development district to apartment multifamily residential district located approximately 1,800 feet east of the intersection of FM 1518 and Ray Corbett Drive, also known as Bear County Property Identification Number 309863, City of Schertz, Bear County, Texas.
PLZC 2022-0161, Hillbrook Road Zone Change, St. Laurence, Senior Planner. So, just to get our bearings here, I know it's difficult to see, but the property in question is highlighted in green. To the south there is the Martin Valley subdivision, Ray Corbett Junior High. It's going to be up there to the northwest. So, as mentioned in the previous, the state requires that we notify all property owners within 200 feet of a zone change request. And so on March 30th, 40 public hearing notices were sent out. And in addition, 2 notice signs were placed on the property. One was placed along Hillbrook Road, and the other was placed along Ray Corbett. The responses received as of 5 p.m. today, we have 1 in favor and 18 opposed. This is the zoning exhibit that was submitted. So the proposed rezoning for approximately 14.32 acres. The current zoning district is a pre-development district, which I'm sure the commissioners know is just a holding district. The proposed zoning is a apartment multifamily residential district R4. Per the applicant letter of intent, the proposed development will be an apartment complex with 336 dwelling units. And just for informational purpose, the maximum allowed dwelling units in an R4 district is 24 units per acre. So for this specific property, it would be 343. That's the max that would be allowed. The property is currently under the land use designation of mixed-use neighborhood. This designation is intended to utilize a traditional neighborhood design that includes a mixture of residential uses. The property is currently surrounded by a mixture of residential, public institutions, and vacant properties. The proposed rezone to apartment multifamily residential district is compatible with the surrounding mix of land uses. So the proposed rezoning of the part multifamily residential R4 adds to the mixture of uses currently in the area, and it does conform to the comprehensive land plan designation, as it would provide a mixture of housing types to Schertz. Therefore, staff recommends approval of PLZC 2022-0161 Hillbrook Road zone change request from pre-development district to apartment multifamily district R4 as presented. And the applicant is here.
Thank you.
As well.
The applicant, again. You're still in the lead.
I am. Good evening, Commissioners. Ashley Fairman again. Thank you for, perfect. Thank you for hearing me again. And thank you for everyone for coming. We know that there's a lot of opposition, or we know now, right, to this project. So I'm going to try to address some of the concerns I heard in public comment, and then would be happy to discuss again later if possible. So I'm here today on behalf of Marstan Development. Okay. So here's the site, as you already saw from Sam's presentation. It's a little less than 15 acres on Hillbrook and Ray Corbett. And when looking at the area, looking at the site, looked at the developer, looked at the comprehensive land use plan. It is zoned pre-development, so preparing to be developed for something. The land use plan does show the site as mixed-use center. So we were looking at something a little bit higher density in terms of housing. As you all know, and you've heard many times, and are I'm sure experiencing, there's a lot of demand for housing. There's a lot of demand to be in this area, and this provides another alternative housing option. There have been some comments about affordability, Section 8. You all have seen affordable projects come forward, and this is not intended to be that. This is intended to be a market rate project. Again, that's not a use issue, but I do want to highlight that as well. So here's a conceptual site plan. Again, not the use question, but this is kind of what's generally proposed. As was mentioned, it's up to 336 residential units. We are requesting the R4 straight multifamily zoning. A lot of the other multifamily projects that have come before you have been PDDs, planned development districts. We were not seeking any variances for this property, so we didn't come forward with the PDD on this one. That doesn't mean it's not maybe an option moving forward, but that's why we went with the straight multifamily district. There is the R4 multifamily, which is the 24 units an acre. The next step down from there is a duplex project, so there's quite a bit of difference in density between the duplex zoning and then the R4. So we are asking for the R4 for this. Here's just a conceptual rendering to share. I know that may be hard to see, and happy to talk with anybody after. And it's just kind of conceptually of what the project might look like. Again, in the comprehensive land use plan. But if it's all right, I'm going to kind of jump to some of the concerns that we heard. And staff may be able to address this a little bit further, but traffic impact, obviously we'll have to do a traffic study that comes along with this, and look at the impact, and there's improvements that may need to be made to Hillbrook, improvements that may need to be made to Ray Corbett. We did reach out to TxDOT to try to get a little bit further information on 1518 and the schedule for those improvements, and it's our understanding the latest is that that project is supposed to let in June and then start construction in November. So hopefully the 1518 improvements are coming soon, construction of those, and then as you all know, zoning is the first step in this process for any sort of development, so we would still need to do all of the engineering work on this project, all of the design, work with city staff, plating, all those sorts of things. So it would be years probably before you see any construction on this property, which would come hopefully after those 1518 improvements that are supposed to start pretty soon. Working with the city and utilities will be provided by the city. That can also dictate timing of development when those utilities are ready and the project can be served. Also, let me see, I heard a daycare. There's not any plans for a daycare on this property, and the R4 zoning would only allow for housing, so there could not be any commercial uses that go along with it. School, we did reach out to the school district, let them know of the proposed project, of the proposed with zoning, just so they're aware. They don't tend to comment on these things, and that was the response we heard back, but we do know that it's important for them to plan moving forward for potential new students in the schools. Then I think I'll jump to, I know that I've heard comments, questions about environmental on the site. And I do want to highlight one thing in the site plan. I'll get to that in a second, but there has been a phase 1 environmental done, a phase 2 environmental study is being completed. The environmental engineer, I do have some comments I just want to read from him. His name is Bill Smith. He works with Smith Inland Environmental Engineers. They have done soil borings on the site. Soil samples were collected as deep as 30 feet in this area to determine if there's any contamination or backfill. None of these samples have shown contamination over TCEQ levels. And so what this means is that the soils and subsurface meet the standards for groundwater protection. And they have not found any class 2 waste, which is garbage, brush, trees, that sort of thing, in any of their soil samples or excavations. So they are currently working on attaining a no further action from TCEQ letter, which would allow for development of the site. Obviously, if there was any contamination, that would have to be cleaned up prior to anything being constructed. With that, I do also want to note that I know there's a lot of people here and a lot of people who are going to speak in opposition to this, and we are happy to have dialogue and continue discussions. So if that means more time is needed, that's something we're willing to do, to share more information with the community, to hear concerns. I know we can hear in the public hearing, but sometimes it helps to have that discussion in a one-on-one or at least a group setting. So I'm happy to do that as well, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you mind if we leave this graphic up there? Okay. So once again, this is a public hearing. It is 6:57 p.m. And I will open this up for public input. Don't need to raise your hand. You don't need to have signed up. Try not to, bombard each other, but just come on up to the podium. And again, 3 minutes. Name and address on the record.
Hi, Barbara Lynn, 929 Millhouse Drive. So you already heard a lot about the traffic. What you didn't hear was when there is an event at the school, we were backed up for over an hour on 1518 trying to get home. I couldn't get home through Ray Corbett, so we tried to go through Lois again. We couldn't even get past the school. It was so backed up. Football games, prom was horrible. So now we're talking about more traffic. They're going to have their events. It's just going to continue to get worse. It's 2 lanes. The other thing about the values, yes. You start getting a lot of apartments around housing, your values start going down. The problem is, it might not deplete it that much, but what's going to deplete is the reselling. There has got to be people that are interested to want to live that close to a lot of apartments. And so we could have a problem selling it than if we didn't have the apartments. We would have more people interested in looking at it. The other thing I had is, I'm in the insurance business and I'm sure buildings under construction. And the one thing I have not seen since here is we have more homes going up in Argonne Valley that it's not even through. So that's not even completed. So now we've got more cars there. You're going to add an apartment complex of 336 possibly. Plus it could be what? Possibly 1.5 cars times that, because there's probably 2 people. Now you're talking about more traffic on 2-lane roads that are not even being kept up right now. And the biggest issue is in construction, where's our commercial infrastructures? Normally when we have this much subdivisions, you have commercial. And like someone said, all we have is Dollar General. So we're focusing on all this housing, but we're not focusing on anything to help our community of our residents for structures of commercial commodity, grocery stores, and possibly gas station closer because the gas stations are further away. The last thing is the traffic. We're not gated. And on Ray Colbert, they're going to get backed up. So where are they going to go? They are going through our subdivision. Who's going to be responsible for maintaining our roads that are going to get deteriorated for all these multiple vehicles? How many accidents are we going to have? Any kids going to get hit? As someone said, we do have speeding. It's only 20 miles an hour. We have speeding already. So those are our concerns to why we don't want a multifamily that close to our subdivision. Thank you for listening.
You're welcome.
Hello again, Commissioners. I have two more concerns. The first one is... Correction, sorry, Joshua Berry. Two concerns. I live on the Greenbelt in the Rhine Valley subdivision, and the city can't even handle mowing that. We get spiders, snakes, scorpions, all of that. I got weeds out my butt. And they can't even come by once a month to mow that. How can we trust them to handle the zoning of this properly? At the same time, I'm also a disabled vet 100%. I am not able to work. My life cannot work. What am I supposed to do if crime, God forbid, gets to that point that we have to move because of the safety of my kids? I can't afford to move anywhere else. What am I supposed to do then? And, being told sorry, good luck, won't cut it. And looking at that picture, there's no way that's enough parking. Is street parking going to become a thing in our neighborhood? It's already happening with these homes going in. A lot of it is the construction workers and stuff like that. But it gets tiring. I live on a very dangerous intersection with Rhine Valley. It is a very sharp right-hand turn that's coming around our corner. I don't know how many times you hear people have to hit the brakes. For one, speeding is a big thing. And for two, you can't see around that corner. What's going to be done about that? How are they going to incorporate all of this? As it's also the entrance to our subdivision, the only entrance on Ray Corbett is supposed to also be one of the entrances for this complex. Is a stoplight going to get put in there? Those are the concerns I have with this particular project. Thank you for your time.
Hello. Sylvia Sales Brown, 19778 Mulhouse. I would be part of the opposing residents that the commission rescind or withdraw the request to rezone to pre-development multifamily, until which time the infrastructure within 1518 and all of that, Lower Seguin, supports additional rezoning. But I also have a question for the applicant. As part of the environmental survey, has there been any findings of any protected species in that area? Because if that does happen, you can't really do anything with that. So if you have information on that, that would be great on either phase 1 or phase 2. So again, I would like to join the 18 opposing for the commission to withdraw or rescind the request for rezoning. Thank you.
My name is Lawrence Wilson. I want to speak about some of the things that...
Address?
12346 Erskine Valley, Schertz, Texas. Speak about some of the things that Josh had spoke about as well. With the speeding, my wife and myself, whenever we drop our youngest child off for the school bus, we actually have to stand in the middle of the road to stop cars sometimes because they will drive right past the bus. And, I would rather put myself in danger than have my 8-year-old kid hit. And with this apartment complex being built, that does add on to that danger for my children. I moved down here after serving 12 years in the military to find that safety for my children. My son, he does go to Rose Garden. That's going to affect that school, not only in traffic, but also with attendees going to that school. And I know that the teachers there are already overwhelmed. And we know teachers are underpaid for what they're having to go through right now as well. And then, my daughter, she's getting ready to start going to Ray Corbett next year. Within the past couple of years, with my backyard facing that green belt, we've had big power lines put in. You know, that takes away from my view. And then the school took and they added additional chain link fence. Now I don't have access to go back and mow behind my fence whenever the city's not coming out there. You know, and I caught a turtle in my backyard yesterday. You know, I know a turtle ain't dangerous, but still, you know, if a turtle can make it into my backyard, what else is back there? And, you know, Josh was talking about how there's only one entrance going on to Ray Corbett, that additional stuff. I know right now we have a sewage truck that comes and dumps sewage right there near Ray Corbett Middle School. And I go out in my backyard and I smell that. From being in Afghanistan, we had to deal with a pond that was full of fecal matter. And I had to breathe that in every single day. I don't want that same thing going for my kids. That just shows how bad the infrastructure is right there and cannot support this kind of development right now. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry. Jessica Marks, 12233 Fort Walk Drive. So I'm just going to read my notes. So I understand that the owner of this land has the right to sell his property and right off into the sunset with all the money from the sale. And I'm sure they weren't happy when the land Rhine Valley was built on was rezoned for homes and they had to live around all this construction. Sorry. So obviously before we purchased our home, we had no idea what was behind the tree line. I couldn't see, and those trees offered both sides privacy, which has been great. And so now having a 300-unit apartment complex facing into my backyard, and I'm assuming you'll be tearing down the tree line that currently provides privacy for both sides. Obviously, that's an issue for me. And so when we were looking to buy homes, my biggest deal breaker was I wanted no one behind me, like no neighbor, anything, right? And so it was such a blessing to find a house with no one behind me, close to work. At the time, I was going in the office, great school dress, all that good stuff. Blessed, awesome home. And so I could stand up here and make the argument, like my appraisal, like my home value is going to go down, but you're not the appraisal office, so like that's not something you can do, right? You don't have control over that. I could say, you know, like infrastructure, all that stuff, traffic, all that good stuff, but that usually gets dumped on Texas Dot anyways, then, you know, gotta deal with that. And then I could argue again like the schools, like overcrowding, but you're not the school district, you can't answer for that, right? And so when I was looking at the paperwork, like the application for rezoning this land was submitted on September 23rd of last year. And so I can only assume that whoever submitted the application might have had a heads up that the workforce affordable housing across from the Crossvine subdivision would be approved at the next council meeting that was held October 11th of last year. And I can only imagine that more applications are in the works now that landowners know that if they have about 15 acres to sell, they have a better chance of rezoning being approved for apartments since precedence has been set. And so all I can say is that as much as I want the property owner to get their money, wish them the best on cashing out, I would like the commission to deny this application and leave this land as a mixed-use neighborhood zoning for only building homes, you know, max 2-story houses, and anything but an apartment complex. And if the tree line stays up, even better. And thank you for your time, and I'll pray my words don't fall on deaf ears. Thank you.
That's our husband.
Mike Pacheco. Mike Pacheco. Is that better? Sorry, yes, I had to move your mic. Mike Pacheco, 10397 Overnight Path. I'm right on the other side of that blue blue lake that's about to go up there, so on that graphic there, with a corner house with a pie-shaped yard on the back. Love it there. Yeah, it is. Thank you, sir. I want to say thank you to the commission, to our commissioners, to the planning group here, and even our applicant here
for allowing us to come out and just share how we as a neighborhood, we as a community feel. We've lived here for about 5 years. My wife and I moved out here from a neighboring community because we were told this was the best community in the area to move to, so we did. We've loved living here for 5 years. We've loved Ryan Valley. It's a small, tucked away neighborhood, kind of hidden away from the main roads, kind of hidden away from the big city. We're about 15, 20 miles away from San Antonio, correct, which is where I grew up. So we're out here kind of in the sticks, if you will. We still have some of the amenities of the big city close by. So, like I said, we've loved living here in Schertz. But we've seen some changes and some differences happening in the past few years. A lot of it being with the redevelopment of land. Who was it that mentioned the gentleman that, bless his heart, but has a job to go and drive around with this big semi with human waste, dumping them and pulling them out of these manholes. We noticed that happening. Why? Well, why do I stop and I ask questions? We don't, because the infrastructure somewhere else isn't suitable. So he's got to do this. If we don't stop and ask why our neighborhood is being used to help another neighborhood, or vice versa, to find out that the infrastructure is not up to par, then we don't know. It falls under the radar, right? Because we're not getting notices about that. So those are some of the changes. Then we look at the cross line. At cross line, we had 1, section 2, now we're 3 and 4. That thing is just moving and growing. But what we don't see is the growth of the streets and the infrastructure. And I know, not to beat a dead horse, but that's been already mentioned, and it's a big concern for us because of that small community that we're a part of. So I won't delay that. What I don't want is, I don't want Schertz to be the city that is putting the cart before the horse, okay? There's a lot of money involved with these transactions. I understand that. There's a lot of money to be made. But the residents here that started this move in Ryan Valley 5 years ago or so, when there weren't very many houses being built, have stuck and stayed, paid their taxes, voted at every election, possibly for some of you that are here in front of us today. So all I'm asking is that let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's not get into a situation where our infrastructure is not able to withstand the dreams that we have for the city, correct? Because if we look at it, there's several streets that are going to be affected. We've got Schaefer Road. It's a tiny little two-lane road. Rayful that really don't need some infrastructure because of this move. Hillbrook Drive, that's a tiny, we just drove it just the other day just to go see what it looked like. It's a tiny little road with some older homes that are right across this property. If you look at Hillbrook Road there. So my last statement is this. We've been here long enough to know that we love living here. What we want to know is how are we, the people that have been here for a while, paying our taxes and doing our due diligence, how are we going to benefit from this zone change so close to our backyards? Because what I see right now is we're seeing increase in congestion, decrease in privacy. Yes, we just mentioned that because we live in that back area. And the property value, as someone else mentioned here, decreasing. Those are the things that pop up to us as residents here. What we want to know is how does this zone change benefit us? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tanil Smith. I live at 10321 Moonville Lane in Ryan Valley. This is my first little meeting that I had to come to, but I felt like it was really important. Just like the gentleman, I've been in Ryan Valley for about 40 years. I moved there to get away from the city and the congestion and the traffic, crime. Growing up in a poor community, I've seen the rise and fall of communities where apartment complexes, they start up well, then they sell off, then they sell off, then they sell off, and then therefore you bring in so much crime, you bring in a lot of traffic, and like our community is for families. We have a lot of children, you have the elementary there, you have the junior high, and you have a lot of kids walking back and forth to school, and just from personal experience, seeing, I feel like it's dangerous. My concern is about safety for our children, because when you have an influx of traffic and people and crimes coming in and out of our community, we don't know who's who. It's just very concerning for our little bitty children. And like I said, this is my first little commission, whatever you want to call this, but I'm really, really concerned as a resident, as the gentleman said, paying my taxes, making sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do as a citizen of Schertz to keep my family safe. And not saying that this property is going to bring destruction, but it is a valid, valid concern, you know, for my family. And as the gentleman said, how does this rezoning or zoning, how does it benefit my family? Because I paid extra money to get away from that. And now it's coming to my backyard. As the lady said, we have so much privacy. We can leave our doors unlocked, we can leave our cars unlocked, but within the last few months, with even all the upbringing of the new communities, we've had breaking in our cars, we've had people stealing our packages, we just had to chase this through our community with police officers. This is new for me, and this is what I tried to avoid when I left the city. So please hear me by God's grace. Please listen to our hearts. It's not a complaint, but it's a very valid concern. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, Commissioner. My name is Karen Berry, 12139 Romerly Way, Schertz, Texas, Roaring Valley. My husband and I are not in the 200-yard zone to get a notification, but our neighborhood is very close. And we have a neighborhood Facebook page, and I would imagine that just about everybody here is from Roaring Valley, because we stay very close. I have a few concerns. On top of everything that's heard, I just second everything, but as far as the sign that was put out on Ray Corbin, maybe next time it needs to be done a little bit differently. It was put, one side of Ray Corbin, you have the school and the housing, and it's flat grass. The other side is all trees until you get to the field. That sign is right there as you leave Ray Corbett in the trees. Most of the people here leave when it's dark. You can't see that sign, but because of our neighborhood Facebook page, people know what's going on, and so we're here to represent our community. And that's a huge issue that maybe needs to be looked at in the future, that people can actually be informed. We have grandchildren here. A young man in the back, Josh, he's our oldest son. We moved here to take care of him because he is a 100% disabled vet. Yes, extremely concerned for our kids, but more than that, our son moved here at the time I was his realtor. Moved in there because it was quiet. He's a 100% disabled vet. He's got PTSD. He's not the only one. Put 336 more units, over 600 more cars, and congestion. He can't handle that. He's not the only one. Our community is most likely made up, I don't know the exact numbers, but 80% active duty or retired military. There's a lot of veterans in our neighborhood, and they have a lot of physical and mental disabilities that they have incurred while serving our country and protecting our freedoms. This is too much between the schools and the apartment complex that they're looking to put up. They can't deal with that. Thank you very much for listening to our concerns.
You're welcome.
Ed Paquette, 9858 Mulhouse Drive. Two major concerns here. One is the infrastructure. It's been brought up about the... There's two major concerns. One is about the, as we brought up before, about the whatever they're pumping tens of thousands of gallons a day over there in the sewer cover over there. Where's it coming from? Are we going to be able to support this additional? I don't think the infrastructure is there. I know we're putting cart before the horse here only to approve the zoning, but it should be known whether or not it can support that before we even zone it. The second thing is I'm looking at this again, cart before horse. They have a single entrance there, exit that goes right into Alsatian Way. two choices. They're going to come down either White Culvert on a school zone in a 2-lane road, or they're going to have to go down Alsatian Way, cutting through the subdivision, and then turning on Mulhouse, which right there is that Rhine Valley Park where there's a bunch of kids. Now, if it was me and there's traffic on there, there's going to be a good amount of traffic now going down Alsatian Way and Mulhouse to avoid all this thing that's happening on White Culvert. I asked you to not approve this, any zoning or anything, until we find out whether the infrastructure is there to support it. Otherwise, we're going to have problems. Thank you very much.
Hello, folks. Robert Marks, 122-334 Bot Drive. First, one of my neighbors was speaking about the crime in our neighborhood that we keep having an issue with. Me personally, I've stopped one robbery and broke up 3 drug deals at our park alone. And the drug deals were all within 5 minutes. So I can see myself, I come from a poor neighborhood, so a lot of us worked really hard to get where we are. So it makes us real nervous and very, how can I put it, alert. You know, a lot of my neighbors see me walking the streets, like when they first saw me, they thought I was a meth head or crackhead, because I'm up late and I just walk the streets, just protected. But that's just how Rhine Valley is. We look after each other. As far as congestion, I had the privilege of running for office last year, end of last year. If you recognize my name or not, I ran for mayor. I got to meet a lot of first responders, and 1518 is just a mess. It's, with the first responders that I met with, I had said at a council meeting before I met them about emergency response when it's so badly congested. And they seconded it when I got to meet them. I was actually in the traffic when the gentleman got hit on 1518 a few weeks ago. And this is one of the problems that is going on with the congestion. We had to go through Crossline to get to I-10. And if I could have got away with monkey stomping somebody, I would have, because they were speeding past school buses as kids are getting on the bus. So, my house is one of them that's looking at the back. Y'all met my wife. She's shorter than she. But this area, it just does not support this. That's too many people, too small of an area for these cars coming in and out, the kids walking to school, people speeding, not even paying attention to our kids. I'm one of the folks that has the PTSD. That's one of my protecting things. That's why I walk late at night. It's very unsettling. And speaking to a lot of my neighbors, it seemed like they feel, and I do too, I feel deceived with the area, because when we first moved here, it looked like Schertz was going in the direction of building houses and neighborhoods. And then all of a sudden, we started hearing about apartments coming in, which is one of the reasons why we moved to this area, the folks that I've talked to, of nice houses, nice neighborhoods, quiet neighborhoods. It's been so long since I've seen kids playing out in the streets. And you see it now in Rhine Valley, I know. I see it all the time. So please don't let this go through. At least not now, not until the area can support this. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Richard Johnston. I have 5 addresses for my properties. The first one is 10303. The second is 10307. The primary one is 10311 Hillbrook, 10315, and 10319. I'm the last 3 properties at the end of Hillbrook in a cul-de-sac there. A couple of questions that I have is the blue shaded area, is this a retention pond, or is this a pond where people will be able to fish out of? What? The reason why I ask that is, where will that pond drain into if it overflows? Okay. Is that going to drain somewhere else, or is that going to drain onto Hillbrook? The next question I have is, they mentioned the possibility of redoing Hillbrook Road. Will the residents of Hillbrook Road have to give up any more easement rights for that road to be done? Okay. The last one is, when I go out of my house either in the morning or in the evening, and I look across the front of my property, which faces east, I see a nice tree line that separates our properties from the property that's in discussion this evening. What's going to be done with that tree line? Will it remain, or will it go away? That's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
My name is J.C. Herrera. Address is 12020 Schaefer Road. You guys know my place is Shady Oaks Ranch. We're the entertainment center right there on Shady Oaks Road. I've been there for over 22 years. I also was the previous owner of the TNS Stables out on Schaefer Road also, which are properties conjoined. How many people here are from Rhine Valley?
Here.
And how many people are from Schaefer Road? So let me show you guys something. So I've been here since the very beginning, and the farmers' fields were all around me. A lot of you all have been to my place. I see some faces. Right there on the bottom, there's an easement that comes out on Schaefer Road. A lot of people don't realize that. And you didn't mention that at all. And so there's no sign whatsoever on Schaefer Road. Why, I don't know. The only sign that I was made aware of was on Hillbrook, and then the sign that y'all are talking about. Is there any way to bring this down just a little bit, this picture? No. No? Okay. So what you guys are looking at here, that they're proposing to build on, is a pit. And I will challenge the gentleman that did the core samples, and my attorneys can do also, because I was the one that witnessed it. And all this that had been on Hillbrook, we used to own the water system that supplied all the water to Hillbrook. And that got contaminated. TCEQ, I went to court in Austin with TCEQ years ago. There you go. And so y'all received some pictures. A citizen that lives off the Hillbrook had those. That's from way back. We saw the majority of that pit is filled from honest construction, and a lot of it is the remains of Randolph Air Force Base that's in that pit. Like I said, I don't know how in the world that they're assuming that they can build there. John Lanning that bought the property took it in trade from honest construction, and he was going to build a big facility there. When he did his core samples, he could not build. He sold that land to my next door neighbor, which is what you guys are looking at up there where that pond is. My property is the property that's next door to that, and y'all can thank me for the tree line because I keep that tree line there.
Thank you.
And we're really proud of that. I mean, we threw a fit too when we found out you guys were going to be there. Okay? But you know what? It's worked out great. The only thing that I lost about $700,000 because we're no longer allowed to do overnight project graduations, which I did for 20 years. We lose about $200,000 a year there. That's no big deal. I'm here for the long haul. I get offers every 2 weeks. I get offers, and I'll turn them all away. So for this to be built there is just unbelievable. You know, is it going to be a 3-story complex? Is it going to be a 4-story complex? They're going to be able to see what you guys don't know, and you'll be served the papers the same as City Council got served for the other subdivision that was going to be on the opposite side. Because we've been there 22 years. I hold a very long license that will do large events from anywhere from 100 to 3,000 people go on that property. And we're not going anywhere. So there's music, there's noise, and, you know, we have gotten along great with the neighbors behind us. We've been here 22 years. So I want you all to take that into consideration because all these years all I heard was we're going to keep South Schertz rural. We like the properties. We like this, we like that. And all that's been done is it's just getting sucked out of everybody's life here. And so, just to make things clear, with this deal falls through, I've already talked to my next door. That's my next door neighbor that sold the property. I really offered to buy it, and I won't build a thing on it. Because all I intend to do is park a few cars on there, because I've lost my parking and I no longer have my stables. And so that's, which I really think, but also behind this, the city is looking for revenue generators for taxes, which I know everybody got their new tax bill. Mine included, and I pay commercial tax. And I have for years. I've never had an ag exemption out there, not once. And I've paid for 22 years. Lots of taxes. And so I just want you guys to consider this before you put everybody's hard-earned money, people that went in here and they enjoy this life over there. I mean, as it is, it's amazing, because I'm hearing all these people say about the crime. You know, when the fire station went in, everything was just as quiet, I thought, but lately, every night I hear police cars in there, fire trucks in there, I mean, just constantly. And they sound like, you know, that's one of my homes. I also have a home in Austin. But when I'm there, it sounds like it's in my house. And so, you know, the crime has definitely increased. And so I'm with you guys on that. So I appreciate you hearing me out. And if anybody has any questions or would like to speak to me about anything, just let me know.
Hey, good evening. I'm Ryan Frank, 10330 Linville Lane. I don't have longevity here. I'm a military guy. Got here in 21. I'm out like next month. I have no personal motive to this. So we're selling our house. It's already under contract, right? But all the folks behind me are going to be here for a long time. And a recommendation to approve this is going to be a recommendation to turn Alsatian Way and Ray Corbett into a racetrack. It already is, okay? I guarantee you that the kids who are in this neighborhood love the neighborhood, and I wish more folks would be outside, even though it's too hot in the state. It's going to be a racetrack. And with two schools with young kids, I mean, you are going to damn those kids. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you folks do not recommend this project. Thank you.
Dana Bynum, 10249 Metz Valley, and I back up onto Ray Corbett, and I hear the racetracks at night, trust me, every night. I don't have much to add that hasn't already been said, except for the fact that I don't want a 4-story building looking into my backyard every night. On top of the infrastructure problems that we already know are going to be here, that's the only thing that I really have to add. So please, I ask that you do not recommend this. Thank you.
Good evening. Just one last thing. My family's been here for multiple generations. We've been here since the 60s. So I remember when this all used to be farmland. In fact, some of my family went to school with the people who owned the farmland back in the day. One thing I would want to mention is that y'all had mentioned that y'all didn't receive a notice for your stuff. Some of our folks within the 200-foot range, they did not receive a notice either. And that sign is seriously this big. And the only reason our folks voted, I think it was 18 if I'm correct, voted no, was because we do have a very, very close community and a very active Facebook page, and someone happened to see the sign and mentioned it, and so we did call the city. And they did go back down to the city to get their forms so they could vote no. Otherwise, nobody would have voted because nobody received a notice.
Correct.
So that is something that y'all really do need to take into consideration because it seems shady as shit. I'll be honest.
Have you seen how they're approved already?
My name is Tom Silverkowski. I live on Hillbrook Road. And the sign issue, Samuel here took the sign and put it 7 feet off the road up against the fence that I live right in front of the sign. I didn't see it until I got out of my vehicle. I'm the one that picked the sign up and moved it to the road. The other sign, same thing. So I've been here 30 years. I got y'all documentation of the pictures of the landfill that she says is not contaminated. I have documentation right there that we've contacted Almas throughout the years. Almas would drive over there with 5 trucks and get the gas line piping out of there, which you say is not there, the batteries, the tires that she says is not there. I have documentation, and I think that it would be good that all these people realize that I have documentation. All the concrete from Randolph is right there in pictures. The pit where she's saying the pond is 30 foot. They dug out 50 feet from Road Corbin all the way where all those apartments are. That's all landfill. She says it's not. So I don't know who got some money to say, oh, it's good to build on. So you can go look at the pictures and see the pictures. Have you not seen the pictures?
Sir, I need you to address the commission.
Okay, have you passed the pictures out to her? Has she seen the pictures?
Probably not.
Okay. So I'm saying no, and now all these other people know it was a landfill. So why would you approve putting houses and 300 people on this piece of property? I know you discussed it with me because I see it, and I hear it in your voice, sir.
All right, I'm going to break protocol here. I'm going to say it once again. The decision tonight is not about their project. We are not, if we want to recommend approval to the city council, it's not to build these apartments, it's to rezone the property.
Okay? I understand that you are here to rezone the property. But if it was a landfill, why would anybody want to rezone or even say, oh, yeah, let's rezone it? So that's all I'm saying. I'm not arguing with you. I'm making a statement that now all these people know that 30 minutes ago when we started talking about Hillbrook, nobody knew about the pictures. That I've been out there 30 years taking pictures of all this. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's my question.
Hello, sir. Robert Burke, 12548 Rothow Drive in Rhine Valley. Retired military. I moved here from Live Oak because I wanted to be a little bit more rural, and so that's why we bought the house. So I would just like to voice my opposition to a rezoning of a multiplex zone. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Gabriel Parizo-Lauden. I live on 9858 Mulhouse Drive. And you say you are only here to rezone. But you already know that this apartment building is planned and you know where it is built on. And I mean, why would you approve something but you already know that it's not safe because it's contaminated? So, nip it in the butt right where you are and not let it go any further. Because you are the ones who are the first step.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's all I'm going to say.
That's right.
Thank you. Marissa Nolan, 9823 Mulhouse Drive. I just wanted to add that it looks like there's about 40 of us that have come forward tonight. That's with the 18 opposing that you've already received. So clearly there's a big issue issue here that we have concerning the place that we live in. And I just ask that you please take this into consideration and put yourself as it was your home, and that this is what is going on where you live. And these are your children, and this is what's going on here. The other thing that I would like to make note is clearly there's an issue, like they have said, that the letters are not going out. The sign is way too small, clearly on several instances, where enough we have to stop traffic, get out of our cars, go over to the sign and take a picture of the sign. That's not okay. We should all be able to be notified properly when it affects all of us. I understand there's a 200-mile radius that you have to abide by, but why not do what's 200 feet that you have to, yeah, just well. But why not just do the whole neighborhood where it affects all of us? And that's kind of where our concern is as a resident here, where we choose to pay taxes and live and send our kids to the schools. And the other thing is, I know that you've mentioned a couple times that this is just zoning and that this isn't your, reason for this project. But this is the most important, I feel, because the fact is after she leaves, there'll be another lady that will be right behind her trying to do the same thing. So this is important to not be rezoned and to keep it the way it is so that we can have and live nice where we are. And to Mr. Shadios, I don't know his name, I'm sorry, I forget. But we would like to partake in any legal with you and would stand firm to go forward with that as well. Thank you so much.
Steve Berry again. So I'm sitting here listening to everything, and we're a lot emotional. But if I wanted to bring it back and say the due diligence, I don't understand this process. What, sir, is the due diligence of the commissioners based on law to either approve or not approve this? I don't understand the process. And so I think that, you're doing what you can for the community. You're part of Schertz, so you want to do what's best for Schertz. I think so. And so, as we sit here, it's a piece of property. Somebody wants to build on it. I get it. But I'm curious, because I do facilities for the Air Force, and I'm sitting here saying, when we go out and plot a piece of land, we do the environmental, we do all those things before we even look at what is going to be used on it. We're seeing apartment buildings, but I'm saying, wait a minute, time out. Environmental could have killed it. I mean, there's our processes, due process. And so what I'm asking is, where is that written down so that we can say, hey, A, B, C, D. I feel like we're at Y. We're about ready to start building practically when you show me a complex and what it's going to look like. It's not just zoning. Now, if we just sat here and said we're going to zone something from this to this, you're giving us what's going to go there as the zone change. So then we have questions that, no, we're not talking about that here. But that doesn't make sense. It seems like the process is broke. Number one, people don't get letters, and I'm not frustrated with you. I'm merely, I think, voicing for everybody that's a normal human being saying, hey, wait a minute, you're showing me something, but then you're telling me not to talk about it. Because it could be anything, but then show me a picture that looks like something else that could also go there on a zoned property. No, these people own this property, and they want to build what we see here. And we're saying, wait a minute, that's not what we signed up for. And I think I hear environmental issues. So how do you kibosh something that doesn't look like it's good for Schertz? This doesn't look good for Schertz, and I'll just tell you why. 700 cars in the morning at 7 o'clock when the kids are going to school. I don't care how many roads, how many 2 or 3 lane roads they're going to put in there. Kids walk to school. 700 cars are going to be trying to go to work and come home in the afternoon. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Outlaw. Thank you.
Okay, no, I've got to put my foot down here, okay? The public hearing allows each individual 3 minutes. How many of you have been up here twice now? Okay, that's not the way this works. And I'm sorry I let it go on because I didn't recognize it. I'll give you one more chance, 3 minutes, okay?
You said I could come up twice.
During hearing the residents. Is that, okay, I apologize. Because I know a couple of people have done it twice during the, I'm sorry. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
I didn't speak on any of the other property things that's going on, but I notified Samuel and the manager over there a week ago about the landfill. I talked to her, talked to you, and a week ago, all this could have came out and said, well, whoa, wait a minute. Let's do a little more research. Hold on. But now everybody's finding out about this. But now all these people have spent lots of money on their properties, and now all of a sudden they got this park that's going up over there. And nobody says anything about how they know. They knew. I asked them. I said, can y'all hold your hand up? Did I not ask you that? I said, can you not hold your hand up?
Sir, your comments to the commission.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We're not here to question staff.
Okay. I asked them, could they not hold their hand up and say something to somebody?
Okay. And as soon as we're done with the public input, I'll address your environmental, all these questions about environmental concerns and environment, okay? But it's your time. I don't want to take up your time.
I'm done. I'm just asking. I've already said something to them. I don't know why they didn't say, hey, commissioners, hey, look, this piece of property was a landfill.
Okay.
50 feet down, 1,000 feet long. So that's all I'm saying is, as taxpayers, they should have said, hey.
No, I'm talking to not you.
You can't answer it?
No, you can't.
Wow.
Okay. That works? Okay.
Can I say one piece?
No.
1 minute.
No. Have you been up here before?
Only during the residence hearing.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, sir. My name is Jennifer Prey. I'm at 12698 Saturday Way. So I just had a question. Out of the people that were supposed to be notified, out of the 200 feet radius, is there a percentage that oppose that you guys have to halt the project? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? If you haven't had your turn, you're welcome to it.
Are questions going to get answered?
Well, as soon as we're done, I'm going to attempt to answer the question. Yes, ma'am. Okay. The problem is during this portion, you get and so rather than try to answer questions while you're standing there, I'm using your time. Okay. So what we try to do, and I've made quite a few notes here. So once we're done with this part of it, I will try to answer some of those questions. Okay. Have you been up here before?
No, sir.
Okay.
Sophia Davis, 10314 Overnight Path. Just want to tie it all up. There's a lot of passion here from the community. Our neighborhood asks for your recommendation to be opposing in the rezone request for this overzealous development. Our neighborhood is asking for help and we're ringing fire alarms, as you've heard. We ask for the city of Schertz to remember who they are. We'll be addressing them later. Just want a reminder of the core values that we're talking about when we come to Schertz. Do the right thing, even if it's not financially lucrative. Do the best that you can. Treat others how you want to be treated. And lastly, we ask that you work cooperatively as a team, and that's serving us who are already here. Just to sum that up, as a community, that's what we're asking you today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Because I'm going to ask you very, very nicely that once I say it's closed, it's closed. Okay? So we won't be taking questions, and it won't be a two-way conversation. I will try to answer some questions, and maybe we'll get staff and the applicant involved. But once I say it's closed, it's a one-way conversation. So anyone that hasn't been up here already, no? Yes?
I'm not giving you a look, so I have to look.
That's all right.
Hi, hello guys. My name is Simon Reeves, 126987 Ray. Obviously, again, like everyone says, a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of, overcharges, but I've been in this community for 2 years now, man. So love it. When I say love it, love it. Last Halloween, community page came out in tons. I enjoyed it. I met a lot of my neighbors, people I didn't know about. Came out, hey, you're this, yeah. You know what? It's amazing when you get that connection with people. Everybody here in this neighborhood, man, I can tell you right now, they're proud to have what they have. Work their asses off for it. Again, I know this is just a plan to rezone. I get it. I understand. Everybody wants to see change. However, I ask you guys to, help us out as well, because while yes, change can be good, you got to understand how it impacts us as a community. Grow that community. I've seen, again, crazy drivers in the neighborhood, people coming from outskirts, working their way through the neighborhood. It can be really dangerous. Same thing, traffic congestion right off of 1518 North City, and I've almost been T-boned 3 times at that light. So again, like I said, I would just hate for it to happen to anyone in our community, simply because people want to see change. Yes, change is great, but understand the impact you're going to have on everybody else. Last thing I would want to do is just to read on the Facebook page, hey, something happened, or, crime rate. Yeah, we've had a couple of people try to break into our vehicles. If we can do our best to prevent this from happening, even better. But like I said, at the same time, everybody's emotionally charged up. I understand everybody gets upset, but, we enjoy our little quote-unquote slice of Texas that we have. We don't want to see that get changed. Worked our tails off for it. We would like to keep what we have, not lose it, basically. So, again, I would just like to say thank you guys for your time, but please take into consideration what everyone here has shared with you today, because everybody brings up valid points, and I feel we have that right to be heard. So, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? One more time? All right, it is 7:52 p.m. And I will close the public input part. So commissioners, if you'll bear with me, let me start off and try to answer some of the questions, and maybe with some staff input. Let me start with the easy one. We're not elected officials. We're volunteers. We're appointed by city council. We volunteer. We receive no compensation. Once a year, they buy us a shirt. We all live in Schertz. Some of us have been here longer than others. In me in particular, I live up off of 3009 in Savannah Square, and I've been there 34 years. I've seen a lot of change. 3009 was 2 lanes when I moved there. So let's see, I had some comments I wanted to make for the vote. Sam, there is a rule that a certain percentage of just the folks within that red line, if a certain percentage of them object, it doesn't affect us, but when it goes to city council, then instead of a simple majority to pass, it requires three-quarter majority. And do you know what those numbers are?
Yes, it's 20% of the property owners on the county rolls.
Okay.
So if 20% of the landowners are in opposition, then that would trigger the...
Okay, so what I'm asking you, Sam, is do you know how many of the notices you sent out?
So far we have 16%. Okay. So we're not quite at that threshold, but there's still time until the city council.
But again, it's only the folks that live within that notification. So if you have neighbors that you look at that and didn't express their opinion, you know, you can nudge them, okay? But that answers the question, yes, if enough people, and unfortunately, it's just within the notification zone, but if enough of them object, then it just requires a higher vote on city council.
So if I may, and unfortunately they have to live with me, I'll set aside that we do these sort of personality assessments at the city of Schertz, and I'm a CD. And what C means is I'm like a stickler for details and facts. Unless I'm forced to get up here, although Sam did a good job, and most of you guys probably didn't notice it and wouldn't, just so we're really clear on this. So the requirement, and he's right, if a certain percentage of the property owners, now see, you did it to me. Let me try again. If 20%, or if the owners of 20% or more of the property within that 200-foot notice area oppose it, and put that in writing to us, that triggers the 3/4 majority at council, which means they have to get 6 council members to vote in favor of it. So it's not necessarily, you don't go through and count the number of different property owners. You sort of take that 200-foot area, figure how large that is, and then you got to figure out how much is 20% of it, and if the owners of 20% or more. So one of the things is if you have one property owner who owns a lot of property, like on one side, they, by opposing it, could trigger the supermajority. If you have other cases where people just have a little bit, it take a whole bunch to get there. So just to be clear, you did a good job, Sam. It's the owners of 20% or more of the property within the notice area protest. And we take that via email or hand it in writing. So,
okay.
And that's state law, that's not commission law or city law, state law.
It's both. So the city ordinance is based on state law. And so state law has that provision. We, as a home rule city, we've chosen to mirror that. So it's both city and state.
And just a little short, when Running Valley originally, I still call it Pride Rock because that was the original subdivision name. That subdivision was platted before it was in the city of Schertz. It was in unincorporated Bear County when it was platted. So getting back to traffic, okay, it's a problem everywhere. Have you been out on I-35 lately, or even I-10? I'm retired military, and I've lived across the country. And I'm just amazed that the state of Texas and TxDOT always seems to be so far behind. And it's not really an excuse, but I mentioned to somebody the other day that one of the problems we as a city have is that our primary arterials, 399, 1518, 78, 35, all belong to the state. They don't belong to the city. And so, we have to rely on them. And the city stepped up and we kicked in, how much, Brian? 10? How much did we?
I think it was 10 or 12 million.
Yeah.
So we had voters approve general obligation bonds, you guys, and then the city stepped in with additional CO bonds.
So 1518 is being approved partly because the city, as well as Bear County, threw in some money, to try to get the state to move a little faster. For some reason, they chose to do 1103 through Cibolo before they wanted to do ours. But, so again, I go back a long ways, and we hear a lot about traffic. Why add more homes? It's just going to add more traffic. Well, when they built Ryan Valley, they added traffic. When they built, you know where I'm going. It's just, probably people that lived in Deer Haven, which is next door to me there, off 399, they probably didn't like the idea of Savannah Square going in. So I don't know what to tell you about traffic. You talk about speeding through the neighborhood. I'm a retired fire marshal of the city of Schertz, and I spent a lot of time in the patrol car running traffic, and I hear you. And we've got speed limit signs. We put cops out there with radar, but it's humans. It's people that are doing that. And I tell you, when I would run radar in the subdivisions, and 7 times out of 10 of the stops were people that lived in the subdivision. Okay? We hear a lot from southern Schertz that they don't see enough police presence. Well, again, that's something that we don't control. City council and the budget and the police department. I keep hoping they'll watch some of these videos and because but it's one of those things, if we want more police, your property taxes are, they're kind of walking that line. Is there another water tower going in out there on Ray Corbett, or is that just, no, the one I saw was up here on Live Oak that they were going to build, okay. But I will tell you that elevated tank that they just recently finished out there, that is, I believe, another connection to SSLGC, bringing water in. Let's talk about the stinky. Is that the stuff that's being pumped and hauled out of Laura, what is that one down there at the end?
Yeah, so this is the Corbett lift station is what provides sewer service for Rhine Valley and some of the other neighborhoods in the area. And so what you have is Halley's Cove, which is further down 1518, got a waiver to do pump and haul. So the pump and haul comes up, drops into the lift station or into the manhole there, and sends it up to the current treatment plant. Just for folks to know, the city is constructing the Womanhoeing Creek sewer trunk line, and that runs from the new South CCMA plant over by I-10, over 1518, up 1518, and it will connect ultimately into sort of the lift station over by Crossline, and that will take the batch plant from Crossline offline, and Howley's Cove will tie in to that sewer line. So the pump and haul should stop this summer sometime.
All right, thank you, Brian. The sign, okay? The city is required by law they're only required by law to notify those property owners within 200 feet of the rezone request. I don't know how long it's been, a couple of years at least. The commission was searching for a way, because typically these things, as you're seeing tonight, don't just affect the people that live next door. They affect the whole community. So we were looking for a way to notify those other people. And a mass mailing really wasn't very practical to send a letter to everybody. I mean, where do we cut it off? Half a mile? So we kind of came up with this idea of putting up a sign. And I agree with you. They're hard. You can't read them from driving by. You've got to stop and look at them. And maybe that's something we'll look at in the future. Because originally we looked at how big should they be and how much did they cost, who's going to pay for it, and that kind of thing. But that's always something that we can revisit. And maybe we'll take a look at that in the not too distant future. But it was an effort on our part to let more people be aware of what was going on, rather than just the people that by law got a letter. Okay? So we mean well. I guess in this case, it didn't work out real well, but we'll take another look at it. What else do we have here? Let me tell you a story. The open space fund, because we hear this all over. And I'm surprised you didn't bring it up. That was one of the objections when we did the rezoning for Fresenius, is people that live there in, I can never remember the name of that subdivision, it's been there forever. They objected that now the green space behind their house was going away. Well, I don't know if any of you have been out in southwestern Schertz, way out there by 1604. It started out with a subdivision called Laura Heights, and now it's just, there's houses everywhere out there. But I drove out there one day, and I pulled into a new part of the subdivision, and I turned down this street, And over here on my left is a barbed wire fence and open fields. Every lot on that side of that street was sold. On the interior side, maybe half of them were sold. Well, people were buying those lots because there was nothing behind it. What they didn't know is that sitting on my desk back here at the fire station were the development plans for the other side of that fence. Okay? I get it. Like I say, I've seen a lot of change. You know, you used to be able to drive from 78 to 10. There were no stoplights. You know, it was the individual little farmhouses and those businesses, the welding shop and things like that, but there were no subdivisions. But it's one of those things that we all contributed to that traffic problem. And, you know, is it really fair to say no to this guy? We've already said yes to you, but now we got to say no to him. Yeah, I get it, but, and so, let me address now, because I know you're very passionate about the environment, it being filled, okay? And you doing facilities for the Air Force. The federal government, you know, I couldn't believe the Air Force had to do an environmental impact study just so they could put a new airplane at Randolph. I mean, they've already got airplanes. We got to do one just to put a different airplane there? The answer is yes. Private development on private land, unless someone can raise concerns about endangered species, which we see a lot, you know, the warbler and that kind of thing. You know, the city there's no environmental impact statement to develop a piece of property in the city of Schertz, correct, Sam? Unless somebody has flagged it. There's a piece on that right there on Schaefer and 1518. As you're coming west, it'll be on the right-hand side. TCEQ is flagged that as an environmental issue. The guy, I don't know if you guys have been out there for a while, used to store drums of who knows what, okay? But if these folks want to come build an apartment building on that fill, you know, that the city doesn't require them to give us any kind of environmental thing. It's just that, you know, it's the rules aren't the same as they are for the government or even the state. What else did we have here? Retail. I don't want to tell you about retail, okay? That's, we have no control over that. That's, I mean, look how long it took, you know, now they got that brand new HEB in Cibolo. Well, how long did it take to get that? Okay, I can tell you when I moved to Schertz, the only thing up at 399 and 35, okay, where there was that little thing over on the southbound side, and there was the Keebler warehouse in the industrial, and that was it. And it was probably, it was years before HEB finally built their store, and once they did, things took off. So it's not us, although I would hope that economic development is working some of those issues. That's just strictly in the business community that you know, they look around for like Dollar General. They saw an opportunity, and so they built a store. HEB or 7-Eleven or any of those, they'll come someday. But that decision is theirs, not ours. Road maintenance, since you're now in the city, your street maintenance is the responsibility of the city of Schertz. And that all comes down to, once again, you're competing with everybody, with every other street in the city. Several years ago, they started a program where they survey every street and then they listed them worst to best. And they're working their way through that list. But that's how that works. So, being the retired fire marshal, I look at that plan and I say, where's your second entrance? Because I only see one, okay? But that is something that would come at plat, not at zoning. And you know, you're absolutely correct. And I don't remember which one of you came up here. Because this is specifically R4, if the zoning is approved, that's multifamily housing. So yes, you're right. We know it will be apartments. Whether or not it would be this particular plan, you know, is a different story. Where was I going? So could you answer the question about, because I noticed that's a detention pond, not a retention pond. So where would the overflow go?
Sure, so the plan is that it's quite a big area. The idea that is a detention pond, so that is where stormwater drainage would come in the event of, you know, a large rainfall. It holds and drains slowly as opposed to just all flowing off the site at the same time. So the law is that we can't change the flow to impact anyone downstream any different than it is now. So it's planned to be detention, so detain and then release. Like I said, that's a really big area. I think it would generally be in that area, but that is an area that we know can't be built on.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Sure. And so once again, part of the, again, if this were to be approved by city council and they come to want to build their project, they have to work with our engineering department about drainage, and they have to, you know, they have to show civil engineering about where the flow is going to go, and as she said, the law says you can't increase it, you can't make it any worse than it already is today. But again, that's outside our scope, but it's part of the process as the project moves down the road. Where is Hillbrook on our master thoroughfare plan? What does it look like in the future?
I don't believe that there's any plans to
do anything to it. Okay. I was kind of hoping, because I keep waiting for somebody to come along. You know, years ago we were talking about connecting Hillbrook to Ray Corbett, but apparently this isn't going to do it either. So, so I think that. So the question was about if they improve Hillbrook, would you lose more? Would you lose property right away? And I guess the answer is we don't have any plans to do that. So the answer would be no. I kind of think that you know, that there are some other things that, you know, it's like property values, and we've kind of talked about that. The reality is, if this zone request is denied, something else is going to come along. You know, you're not, you know, that's not going to be open space forever. Somebody is going to build something on it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to, since I have some other comments, but I'm going to save those. I'm going to give the other commissioners a chance now. I hope I've answered most of your questions. And again, I think staff will be around for a few minutes afterwards, and you can always call them. This lady over here in the corner was telling me how great they are about she's called and gotten answers to questions, and that's my impression of these folks. They're more than willing to answer your questions and help you. Okay. All right. Enough for a while. I'm going to take a break. Who wants to talk?
All right, I have only one question at this time, and that is, do we have enough water and sewer capacity to service this facility, this new development?
again, so that evaluation would come later with plating.
I understand that.
So at this point in time.
You're not going to answer my question. That's true important. I make the lead to plans.
Sure. So ask your question again, make sure I understand it, Commissioner Evans.
Do we have sewer and water to take care of this development at this property.
And when you say sewer, what do you mean? Because this project generates sewage for you. I help me understand that.
There's enough capacity out there.
Oh, yes, sir. There is capacity to accommodate the sewage from this project, and there is sufficient water to serve this project. Yes, sir. There is capacity. That's your question?
No.
Okay, what's your question?
Is that capacity at this property?
No, sir.
Who bought to this property?
So, again, Commissioner, how long have you been on Pansy? As you long enough to know what's right, as long enough to know what's happening. So you're asking a question you know the answer to. So as you know, when they come in to plat the property, they have to extend infrastructure to serve the property in order to follow a plat for the property. That is the way it works. And so again, the other items you have on tonight's agenda with regard to the plats, that's what they have to do. So yes, sir, when they plat the property, but is there a sewer line to this property running up to the plant today? No, there's probably not. That happens with platting.
So there's not capacity.
So let me be clear, there is capacity. And so when we speak of capacity, what we mean is, if they were to construct a water line from existing water mains to this property, would there be adequate water to flow out? Is there capacity? There is capacity. The next question is, if they construct a sewer line to tie into the sewer lines that run to the plant, is there capacity in the plant to treat that sewage? There is. But to be very clear, that infrastructure does not exist today. That's part of the process to understand. Typically, it's, again, property is zoned. When the property comes into plat, that's when they're required to construct the infrastructure to serve the property. We don't just show up to some farmer and say, you need to build a water or sewer line. It happens with plat. So yes, there is capacity, and in order to develop this project, they would have to construct the water and sewer lines with platting to serve it.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm with you.
I got you.
I just want to hear it.
Yes, sir.
Now, the other question I have is to staff. And somebody has mentioned we'll call it a landfill. And was staff aware of this?
So I am not aware that there was a landfill there, and just to be clear, and some of the folks may know, did they receive a permit from TCQ for a landfill? I'm assuming not. What I gather is someone was out there just dumping construction waste.
That was Bear County at the time.
Yeah, but again, just to be clear, I'm doubtful that there was a permit issued by TCQ for a landfill. My assumption is this was out in the county, nobody was looking at it, and somebody started going out and hauling waste and material on it until they got caught and got a problem. So I'm not aware that there was a landfill on the property.
I have documentation right there on the page.
And again, then we'll look at it if TCQ issued a permit for a landfill, just to be very specific. But yes, if you go to the appraisal district's website, to be clear, and it notes the existing use, that existing use from the appraisal district says contaminated land, which gives you a heads up that something has happened in the history of this property. So again, you go to the appraisal district website, the existing use is contaminated land.
That's what it says today.
So it says, I just looked it up to make sure before I got up here that I wasn't wrong, because I'm a type C personality. And so I looked it up just to make sure. When I looked it up last week when Sam sent me the information, that's what it said then too. Yes, sir. I'm going to stand up here in case you got another one, otherwise I'll turn around and walk back.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
This is for staff as well, but sitting here listening to a lot of the gripes, I was thinking of suggestions, or at least asking you, in the notification process, is there a restriction that the notifications that go out to the residents, that it has to be paper? And the reason I ask that is that could this notification process be made electronic or more 21st century, where we post this to maybe their website or a Facebook page where it says it out there and they link their page to it, where everyone can actually see this real time and it can be made available in real time as well. And that individuals can sign up within the 200 mile, I said it. The 200-foot radius who actually live in that area to be given the opportunity to vote for or against the zoning or rezoning projects. And I'll shut up now. Go ahead.
So I think in terms of the paper mailer, so that information we can look at county records, we can see people's addresses, who owns the land, so we can confirm that the person that owns that property, they have a mailing address, we can send them that letter, right? In terms of the signage and maybe more creative ways of reaching people, I mean, that's something we could definitely look at, and we could all workshop that at some point, but to answer your question about the paper mailer, like that has a specific process that, we look at the county, we look at who owns that land, that's their address, we send them a letter. So,
I get it.
yeah.
It's not always the user.
Right.
I'm good, sir.
A lot of people talk about congestion and overcrowding and crime, and I don't want to shock anybody, but the projected build-out for the population of Schertz is 90,000 people. So we're at about 40 right now. So we're going to get 90,000 people. If you think it's congested now, okay, it's going to get more congested, and we can't stop it, we can't prevent it. And a lot of the complaints tonight and a lot of the concerns tonight were expressed before Rhine Valley, before a shovel of dirt ever turned on Rhine Valley. People came before the commission, and I was sitting on the commission at the time, and they made the same concerns that you did. So you're there, why can't somebody else be across the street? Let's just be fair. And on this commission, I got on the commission because something was happening in my neighborhood I didn't like. It still might happen, so I found out I couldn't do anything about it, so that's another story. But if you buy a house and there's a beautiful vacant property behind you and there's deer feeding in the morning and there's birds flying and stuff, you need to be concerned because somebody's going to build something back there. Unless you want it to stay green and stay pretty and stay full of deer, you need to buy it yourself. If you don't own it, somebody else is going to build on it. So we can't stop anything on this commission. We try to control it to the best we can. And so, we haven't voted yet, but just your concerns are shared by everybody that comes before us. And they were shared before Rhine Valley was there. So we hear it all the time. And Rhine Valley at one time was 980 units. It was cut down to what it is today, which is somewhere around 700. So there could have been over 900, maybe 1,000 houses out there. If something hadn't been done by city council a long, long time ago. So you guys are kind of fortunate at the moment.
Someone made a good decision.
There's also complaints about the school. The same complaints about the school that were crowding were made before Rhine Valley was here. Rhine Valley has contributed a lot of kids to the Schertz Independent School District. And there's going to be a lot more. And they have their own demographer. They have their own population study. They put out a report once a quarter. The report is extremely detailed. Trust me, the school district knows what's going to happen almost to the person, almost to the house for the next 10, 15, 20 years. They know, and they understand. The utilities, Brian talked about water and sewer. There's plenty of water and sewer available and plenty of electricity. The main sewer plant that Schertz uses, that services Schertz and 5 other communities, has a capacity of 10 million gallons a day. They're only consuming about 5.5 million a day right now. We've got sewer capacity. And there's plenty of water to go around too. The aquifer we get our water from, out near Gonzales, the Gonzales area, out that area The people who study these types of things said there's enough water out there for everybody, not just Schertz, but for everybody for the next 60 to 90 years. So I don't know who's going to be living out here for the next 60 years. I won't. But there's enough water, so don't be worried about that kind of stuff. Let me see. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out and sharing their concerns. I've lived in Schertz for a while now, and I am excited to see all of the growth that is happening, but I do understand, the types of uses that are going to be coming to the city and how that can affect all of you. And I do want to just kind of address a couple of the things everybody's already went over, a lot of the things that you guys were worried about, but there was one question for the applicant just about the flight pattern for the Air Force. That was something that wasn't addressed, as well as possibly like the tree line, but I know that that's probably in the plot section.
Yeah, let me address the tree line, if that's okay. We heard the concerns about privacy. I heard them about privacy, questions about tree preservation, and those are all things that we'll take into account. I understand that much better tonight, the importance of those lines of trees existing on Ray Corbett and on Hillbrook. So those are things that we can definitely work into the plan, and I'm happy to talk with whomever afterwards about those comments. Brian, I'll let Brian answer the flight path question. Thank you.
So one of the things that you mentioned before is that staff is aware of is the new plane that's coming. And that will change to some degree the flight paths, and that will also change the noise contours of that flight path and of the area. So what the city requires, and we put this in place probably 8 years ago, is that if the property that's developed falls under the noise contour above a certain level, and I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, there's sound attenuation that's required to be constructed within those homes. So I think some of the homes in Crossline have that based on where they are. And so again, there's not a prohibition. Property's not within the APZ1 or APZ2 or the queer zone. But again, if when they come in for permitting, it's in that above a certain noise contour, that triggers it. The issue obviously is when this property develops and whether or not the new plane has come and that official noise contour has been updated with the new plane. And so again, we'll have to see what happens, where it is, when it is, at whatever time the property develops, and where JBSA is with the new aircraft.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. My understanding, when you look at at Randolph, and I know they want me to call it JBSA, but I refuse. It's always going to be Randolph. They're concerned with the approach and departures. In other words, the landing and taking off. So when you look, there are extensions off of each runway that are called accident potential zones. There's APZ1, APZ2. And those are basically straight out from each end of each runway. They're not, but if you watch the Randolph traffic, you see T-38s all the time because we're on that side of the base. Very few of them fly straight out or come straight in. They take off and they curve and they come over that eastern side of 1518. That doesn't appear to be a safety concern for the Air Force, but as Brian mentioned, it's a noise issue. And so Randolph puts out a noise contour. They do noise surveys, and the city has access to that contour. Because it's really, their APZs have really stymied growth in that area south of the base. So I've expressed concerns before that very few of their airplanes even go that way. They're all over here flying over Ray Corbett and Rose Garden and my house. Okay, I live on this hill up here, and yeah. I spend a lot of time trying to address your concerns and your questions, but let me now turn to my concerns with this zoning request. Number one, just once, I would like to see somebody come in where the comp plan says it's a mixed-use neighborhood and actually do a mixed-use project rather than, well, mixed use allows apartments, so we're gonna build apartments. And that's not mixed use, that's R4. You can call it what you want. But in the past, we've looked at, I think our intent was to use apartment complexes as buffers either between highways and single family or between commercial and single family. I think a good example, I can't think of one right off the top of my head in Schertz, but y'all know where Santikos is up on 35. Well, the property just as you go into Cibolo on the other side of Rich Kressler, that will be that's intended to be multifamily. And that's a buffer between commercial and residential. And I think we approved some zoning out in southern Schertz, right there, just north of I-10 for the same purpose, R4 to buffer the commercial frontage from the residential. I don't see this with this property. I have some concerns about if we build multifamily in this speed, how does that affect the development around it? Certainly now those lots that are across the street on Hillbrook, what can you do with those? Now you got a long, skinny piece of property. You can't put houses in there. I just, when I look at it, I kind of, to me, it's a little far inland, if you will. It's a little far off 1518 to be a buffer. And I think it would significantly impact future development out there, unless somebody comes in and buys all that surrounding property and builds a shopping mall. Although I know you're not going to sell yours, so they're not going to. So, all of your concerns are valid, but again, I keep saying it's not about that project, it's about the zoning, and I'm just not sure R4, it just causes me concerns about, I think if we were to allow R4, it's just going to lock us into what we can do in the future out there. Which brings up another, I'll get on a little soapbox, not a big one. But you mentioned, we have, it's, what's it called, a comprehensive land use plan. And that was a consensus document that was developed with input from all the stakeholders, the property owners, the commercial, everybody got a chance to say. And that was the community vision for Southern Schertz, Northern Schertz, okay, right? And just as he said, the consensus was we want to keep this rural. So most of this area out there was, although this is an exception, and I think it's because of its proximity to 1518, most of that property out there was, what's the big zone?
Like a state neighborhood.
Estate neighborhood. So those are big lots. And, well, what we've seen is the developers are telling us that's not the market. People aren't looking for big lots. And so we're seeing these requests come in to amend this comprehensive land use plan, not willy-nilly, but on a piecemeal basis. And I personally, as the chairman of the P&Z, have objected to that. I think we need, if that's what's actually out there, and we're working to redo that comp plan and reflect what the current thinking is out there. But in the meantime, we're allowing all these things to spring up. Well, I don't know if I should ask. You folks aware of the Saddlebrook subdivision? Just behind you off of...
Act like we're not aware.
Anyway, again, when I look at where this is, And it's a little bit different. You know, some of you mentioned the one on 1518 across from Crossline. Well, that's on 1518. And I kind of viewed it as a buffer between 1518 and the commercial frontage and the residential that hopefully will go behind it. This one doesn't seem to fit that. This one, yeah, I just don't, you know, despite, you know, I don't even have to listen to what your concerns. I just look at what they want to do and where they want to do it, and I don't think it's appropriate. So, who else? Anybody? Okay, go ahead.
Sam, what is Corbett Drive classified as? Is it arterial or is it something else?
I believe it's a collector. I don't think it's an arterial. I am not 100% sure on that, though.
Which is smaller than an arterial?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be Woodland Oaks Drive, Savannah Drive, Ashley Park, those kinds of streets.
Yeah, it's a residential collector.
I mean, it would be similar to, I think, Alsatian Way, because when I look at Alsatian Way, there are no driveways, it's just all intersections.
I just throw out another, these hearings are interesting in some ways because one of the persons that came up and talked said they don't want any commercial development down there. Somebody else said, we don't have any commercial development. When's that going to come?
Wrong side.
Commercial development comes when you get more houses. As you get more houses, you get more people. If you want your own HEB down there on 1518 or Schaefer, you're going to need more houses and more rooftops. So just think about it when you're making your comments. It's you need more houses to get more retail.
Anyone else? Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind, I don't know if I'll still be here, but commercial will come eventually. It's just, you know, as Commissioner Broad said, it's, you know, companies, it's particularly HEB, you know, they look at rooftops, they look at, you know, and then, you know, that contributes to the traffic problem, and staff and council and everybody acknowledges that part of the problem with Schertz right now is if you look at it, it's a backwards Z. And unlike, if you want to access my house, I have two choices. I can come down 309, I can come down Schertz Parkway, and both of those go all the way to 78. But if I want to get to your house from my house, I have one way to go. That's 1518. And as you pointed out, all the shopping, if you want to go to the supermarket, whether you go to Cibolo, or whether you go to Schertz, or you go to Arlen's down the street here, how do you get there? 1518, okay? And again, 2020 hindsight, we had an opportunity many years ago to extend 309, and it was basically derailed by the folks that lived out there in the now vacant where Crescent Bend Park is. And I wanted to thank you for those pictures. I was in the fire department 97 and 98. In 98, I was up 48 hours working that flood.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it was, although Crescent Bend, if you go out there now, that's a nice park. Where was I going with all that? But I want to express I appreciate your I understand the passion, you know, and we hear it a lot. I want to thank you for your patience and your courtesy towards me and the rest of the commissioners. We do appreciate that. So if nobody has anything else, I need a motion. This will be a recommendation to City Council to either approve or deny PLZC 2022-0161. Or, you know, as the applicant has, they've expressed, we could table it. I'm not sure that would change anything. Okay? I know it would give them an opportunity to talk to each other, but I'm really not sure that, given what I've heard tonight, that would really change anything. But it's up to you folks what you want to recommend to City Council. See, it's always like this. Nobody wants to rush. But eventually somebody will step up and make the motion.
I deny.
Do it right.
I second that motion.
I have to punch my buttons for it to work.
No pressure.
Let me see this a while.
PLZC 20220161, I recommend deny.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Carbone to recommend denial to City Council. Do I have a second?
A second.
And a second from Commissioner Brown. Any further comments or discussion? Call for the, now, just to make clear, an aye vote is a vote to deny. Okay? So I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Now, don't get too excited. Because this is only a recommendation.
We're going to find City Hall too, it's okay.
The City Council's a little different beast than we are.
We do appreciate it.
They will, I know they all, this was recorded, and I know that the council members will watch this video, so they'll hear your comments, they'll hear our discussion. Do we know when this is going to be on the council agenda? Not yet, okay. So if you go to the city website, www.schertz.com, and you scroll down about halfway, there's a crawler down there. It'll show you a rectangle with some event or something, and it'll cycle through those things. And one of them that will come up is because I assume this will be a public hearing for council as well. So there'll be a notice of public hearing. Normally, so a lot of times they can tell me when it's on the agenda, and I can tell you folks. So all I can suggest is that you periodically go out to the website and look for that notice. Okay?
Thank you.
Now, if you're interested, they're not public hearings, but as we move on to 6 items for individual consideration, we are going to talk about Saddlebrook. If anybody's interested. All right, so let's pause for a couple minutes, Sam, and let everybody use the restroom out here. Again, if you go to the city website under government, and there's a city council link, and it'll show you all the council members. It has a link to their email.
Okay.
And phone numbers.
Thank you.
Anything you could possibly imagine go on that website.
Well, the problem was getting to that part,
I actually volunteered, but you didn't have any openings. I'm kind of glad I didn't.
Well, the city's always looking for volunteers for the boards and commissions.
Hanover was historical. I'm an engineer.
What kind of engineer?
Jack of all master of none. I've worked at everything from buildings to...
Building and standards is one that never meets, but they're specialized, okay?
No, I had I forget what his name was, but I had asked
said the only thing that was open was his buildings.
But if you submit an application, they will keep it on file.
They'll keep it on. Oh, I got that problem. You can't submit it to the file. But when you submit the application, it only allows you to choose one discipline at a time.
No, you can, if you do it on.
Well, yeah, when you send it in, so.
You tell me to do the old-fashioned thing.
Well, do it one time nice and make a bunch of copies.
Okay.
You send one in, it says you want on 3 and 2. You can send another in, it says you want on board with adjustment.
All right, John's back, so thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
They're not required to disclose.
All right, so, moving right along,
I think it's 35.
item 6A, ELPP 2023-0064, a waiver. Considering action on a request for a waiver in relation to sanitary sewer frontage extension requirements for the proposed Saddlebrook Ranch Unit 1B subdivision. Approximately 23 acres of land generally located approximately 2,000 feet to the west of Silver Creek along Lower Seguin Road, parcel ID 310011, City of Schertz, Bear County, Texas.
Okay. Check. All right. PLPP 2023-0064, Saddlebrook Ranch Unit 1B preliminary plat waiver, Shendel Haas, senior planner. All right, so the subject property here is outlined in green. Lower Seguin Road is just to the south. Rhine Valley is to the west. Silver Creek is just kind of that wooded part going off to the top right corner. And just so it's a little easier to see what we're talking about here, this is the Saddlebrook Ranch Master Development Plan. Outlined in red is the same as what's in green there. So the applicant is requesting a waiver of sewer extension along the frontage. So half of this plating, you will see that there will be sewer extensions along the front of Lower Seguin Road here. However, on this side, it's about 550 feet. We're requesting a waiver to extend the sewer lines along the frontage of Lower Seguin, and instead, what they're proposing is to connect to the neighboring property through Unit 1B and Unit 5 by an internal extension. And as you can see, sort of in this exhibit here, the extension would go up through Unit 1B, up to that corner, and connect to the neighboring property there. The extension is accomplished by routing sewer mains internally through Unit 1B and Unit 5, which is the intent, we believe, of the UDC. Engineering has reviewed the waiver and supports the applicant's request. Staff recommends approval of PLPP 2023-0064 waiver as presented. I'll leave this up here if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Sam. If you don't mind, I had some questions when we got our pre-meeting meeting yesterday morning. Did you get an answer about the dividing line? Is Lower Seguin the divider between?
So yes, and so the sewer shed runs to the south and to the, okay, you got applicants here if you want to.
Paul Landa, MTR Engineers, here for behalf of the Saddlebrook Development.
Pull that mic down, please.
Yeah, there you go. So yes, the sewer shed is at Lower Seguin. So everything to the north and to the east is what we're hoping to accomplish to serve with this sewer extension.
Okay, so for the other commissioners, my question yesterday morning during our little meeting was I was curious about the other side of Lower Seguin Road. I look at it, and if they were to extend the sewer line along the frontage of their property as they're required, then that gives access to the folks on the other side of Lower Seguin. Now just run a line under Lower Seguin. Well, that's when the question came up about because of the way it's split, anything on the southern side of Lower Seguin is going to go south to the new plant, not north to the old plant. So there's really no benefit. There's no benefit to the property owners on the south side of Lower Seguin to having that pipe run along the front of Saddlebrook.
That's correct. The topography drains to the south.
And so the folks And, you know, if you look at the master development plan, you know, you can see the floodplain in there. But anybody that wants to develop to the east of this property, you know, typically they would run their sewer line down to Lower Seguin. Well, instead of doing that now, they would just make their connection up there in Saddlebrook. So my concern about the impact this would have on the properties around them was kind of minimized by that sewer shed split, if you understand. So if somebody wanted to develop across the road, they're still going to have to run their own sewer line along, so.
Eventually they'll do it.
Is this proposed extension through the subdivision?
Yes, sir.
And so it's going to follow the city streets, and you're going to stub it out at the back of a piece of property?
Yes, sir.
So if this is any easier to see, Ernie, I think what they're doing is that they would be right here, is where they would, so they bring the sewer line across and stub out there, is what it looks like up there, right on that corner. So maybe a follow-on question that isn't specifically about Saddlebrook. The subdivision that's across the street, I never remember the name of it.
Carmel Ranch.
Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
So where is that sewer going?
That's coming to this lift station.
So it's actually, then it comes to the lift station and it gets pumped.
Yes, sir, to the north, to the CCMA plant.
But anything new is going to go south. If we add on next to Carmel, whatever that is, will have to go to the...
I think that would be something that engineering would probably evaluate.
Yes, there's a small potential for just the track just to the east that has the ability to sewer.
Yeah, again, my concern was only about, you know, I completely understand why you want to do what you're doing. It seems unnecessary to run that down Lower Seguin. My only concern was for the surrounding property owners. But it kind of sounds like this isn't going to, because they're going to have to do something different anyway.
If it went further towards Cibolo Creek, it would be a dead end anyway, and you wouldn't want to do that.
Anybody else? Okay, this is within our bailiwick. This is our decision whether to approve or deny this waiver request.
Motion to approve waiver PLPP 20230064.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Brown. Do I have a second?
Second.
The waiver, just to be clear, okay.
And a second from Commissioner Rowland. So we have a motion and a second to approve PLPP 2023-0064.
Waiver request.
Waiver request. You want me to read the whole thing?
No, you're good.
Any further discussion? Call for vote?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. 5 ayes, none opposed, the motion passes. Okay, get the fun part now. Item 6B, PLPP 2023-0064. Oh, I see why you wanted me to make sure the word waiver was in there, okay. Consider an act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat of the Saddlebrook Ranch Unit 1B subdivision approximately 23 acres of land generally located approximately 2,000 feet to the west of the Cibolo Creek along Lower Seguin Road, parcel ID 310011, City of Schertz, Bear County, Texas.
Okay, PLPP 2023-0064, Southwick Ranch, Year 1B preliminary plat, Samuel Hollis, senior planner. Again, the subject property is outlined here in green. Lower Seguin Road to the south, Wine Valley to the east of that group of homes. Cibolo up at the Cibolo Creek, over at the eastern portion of the property. I'm sorry, the top right portion of the picture there. Once again, the Southwick Ranch Master Development Plan, the property that we are proposing, that this application is concerned, is outlined here in red. The proposed preliminary plat is 23 acres. It falls under the Southbrook Ranch PDD. The applicant is proposing to plat 48 buildable lots. And just for a design reference, this is the Southbrook Ranch design standards here. I believe most of these lots are going to be SF 55. Here's the planning exhibit. So this will have 2 points of access and one little step out. So the step out there is going to be on the left side of the screen. It's going to be Old Chute. That's the name of the road. The plat will have access through Lower Seguin there at the bottom, and that's going to come in through Mesquite Tree. And then there's going to be another point of access from Red Bud, and that's going to be that Palomar Spring. That's the area you see at the right there. So the property is going to be sourced by the City of Schertz for water and sewer. It's going to be treated from the CCMA. It's going to be CPS, Spectrum, and AT&T also serves the site. The proposed preliminary plat complies with all the ordinances and regulations and has been reviewed by the Planning, Engineering, Public Works, and Fire Department with no objections. Staff recommends approval of PLPP 2023-0064 Southwick Ranch Unit 1B subdivision preliminary plat as presented.
All right, thank you, Sam. Yeah, I just noticed the street configuration changed a little bit from their, I don't know if this is their concept or their MDP, but the property just to the west where that stub out goes, that is their property. It's on here for future townhomes. Any comments or questions? Could you put the plat diagram back up there real quick?
Which page would you like to see?
Well, that's the one I was looking for. So it's not just, because I know Commissioner Evans, wasn't that part of your concerns last time, was the fact that they were, the same unit number was applying to disconnected properties? So,
Yep.
yeah, it kind of is, and it kind of, there's a green space that connects them, that finger that's going to the left, that connects to, I'm not sure that's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it. Anyway, I just want to make sure because I know you were concerned about that last time. Anybody? Okay, again, this is our action item. We can either approve or deny.
Can I have Sam to put up the entire subdivision? Okay. Thank you.
Now, I don't see the townhomes up there, but is that still part of the project, that piece of property off to the, you know the one I'm talking about?
Yes, sir. So there was 3 pieces of property, the Friesenheim tract, the Fisher tract, and the Ledwig tract. This is the Friesenheim tract, where he retained that piece.
Oh.
So he lives there, and so I think the developer has the right of first refusal
Okay.
before that, Chairman.
I mean, that's what it says, it says future townhomes. So-
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Motion to approve PLPP 2023-0064.
Second.
That was John?
Yes, sir.
I have a motion and a second to approve PLPP 2023-064. Any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4 ayes, 1 opposed, the motion passes. All right, item C and D.
Yeah, the applicant has withdrawn items C and D, so there's no action to occur on either of those items.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so item number 7, requests and announcements. Request by commissioners to place items on a future planning and zoning agenda. I might ask that we revisit the whole notification sign thing sometime and see if maybe we come up with some better ideas. Anybody else? Announcements by commissioners. Anybody have anything? Well, I can play, I know what city council likes to say, I went to Moving on Main. That's the first time I've been to it. I was impressed. I mean, I go early. I got there early, but boy, a lot of time, my wife and I were we were on our bicycles and trying to come back up Main Street. And we were people, I mean, they were just
Just like 4th of July, you gotta get out there if you want to spot it.
It was very popular and very well done, I thought. So, how about you guys? Anything?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, super excited. So as you may have noticed, a new face in the planning group here. So we are finally fully staffed. Everybody's excited about it. So this is Daisy Marquez. She started with us Monday. She has her bachelor's degree from the University of California, San Diego, and has her master's in planning from Texas A&M. She has
I'm going to use, well, of course, it was San Diego State College, okay, class of 72. Thank you. Go ahead. Finally, not another Maggie.
Your master's is from A&M, so...
That's still cool. Thank you. Say the name again.
Daisy Marquez. She is coming to us with some experience in the planning private sector, so doing some consulting work, so a different take than what we've had previously. So we're all very, very excited to have Daisy with us. It's her 3rd day, so she stuck it out for a long crazy meeting.
Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to working with y'all. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome aboard. And this is not a typical meeting. It's not our longest one.
No, it's not.
Like, what a first meeting.
Because we do, and you know, and I apologize, I was getting a little frustrated, but, you know, we give everybody a chance to speak, and sometimes that makes for long meetings, but that's okay. So item 8, there's some information in your packet about current projects and where they stand. You know, in particular, the Northcliffe project was tabled again. At the request of the developer, by the way. So he's asked now, because he's trying to work with the folks up there. Okay, it is 9:02, and this meeting's adjourned.